Chapter 17. Han Fei intended to goad Hu Kun into challenging him, but he wasn't confident. After all, Hu Kun was a real level 6 who couldn't be weaker than He Xiaoyu, and he couldn't defeat He Xiaoyu yet. Although Hu Kun wanted to fight, he knew that it would be outrageous if he did, so he could only hold back. Han Fei turned around and snorted. Too weak. None of them are worth fighting. He Xiaoyu was stunned. The Han Fei she met today was completely different from the Han Fei she had known for 4 years. She had heard about Han Fei's childhood and knew why Tangu protected Han Fei all the time. Was it really as Han Fei said? Was he enlightened? But why was Han Fei so violent after he was enlightened? In fact, Han Fei was not violent at all. He was just looking for the swallowed spirit soup. Now that one bowl of soup could increase his upper limit of spiritual energy by 1 point, wouldn't he be invincible if he ate 100 bowls? On the training ground of Class 2. Bim, the gate was kicked open. Han Fei said, "Everybody, how about we make a deal? The bamboo stick in my hand can be said to be priceless. Whoever defeats me will have this bamboo stick. Of course, it doesn't matter even if you lose. Just give me a bowl of swallowed spirit soup." Isn't that the useless Han Fei? Is he an idiot? What a great deal. This bamboo rod is worth a lot of money. Nobody touches it. The bamboo rod is mine. I'm told that he knocked out 3 people in a class this morning. That's under the situation where he doesn't use spiritual energy. This guy only has brute force. When he really encounters a battle where spiritual energy is poured in, he's extremely weak. 10 minutes passed. Everybody was lying on the ground. There were 5 bowls of swallowed spirit soup before Han Fei. Gudu, gudu, Han Fei looked at He Xiaoyu who was still dumbfounded. Well, you can have another bowl. Forget it. The rent for a bowl of swallowed spirit soup is indeed too little. Han Fei's name became famous in half a day. A piece of trash had defeated all the students of the same level in his class, and even defeated those of a higher level. The whole school was shocked. The teachers were having a meeting to discuss how to deal with the talents with level 3 spiritual heritage. Suddenly, a probationary teacher walked in. "Well, Master Wang Jia, can you do me a favor?" Wang Jia asked, "What is it?" The intern teacher said, "Well, Han Fei from your class hit someone in school." Wang Jia sneered, "Him? Who did he hit?" "Teacher Zheng, it's normal for students to spar occasionally. Otherwise, they would be flowers in a greenhouse." Teacher Shi smiled bitterly. "Was that really a spar?" "No, Teacher Wang Jia, he has already beaten the whole grade. Right now, no one in the same realm as him can fight him. He's even starting to challenge those of a higher realm." Pfft, the fishing masters were dumbfounded. What? Beat an entire grade? Was he challenging someone of a higher level? Wang Jia was dumbfounded. "Hey, are you sure the Han Fei you're talking about is the Han Fei from our class?" The intern teacher, "Other than the one in your class, there's no other Han Fei in our school." When the teachers arrived, Han Fei was yelling at one of the classes. "Can you do it or not? My bamboo stick can be sold for 10 mid-quality pearls, and you'll only have to pay a bowl of swallowed spirit soup." In the end, a group of experts of the same level shook their heads like a rattle drum. Han Fei said, "How cowardly. Those who bullied me before, you don't have to fight me, but you'd better deliver my swallowed spirit soup in 3 days, or I'll show you no mercy." Someone said gloomily, "I'll fight you. I'll fight you." Han Fei said, "That won't do. You're a level 6 fisher, and I'm only level 4. The man was probably about to explode in fury. "I don't want your bamboo stick. If you win, I'll give you 4 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. Deal." Han Fei was about to measure the gap between him and a level 6 fisher when someone came to him. He Xiaoyu said, "Han Fei, are you crazy? He's a level 6 fisher. Don't ruin your foundation for a few bowls of swallowed spirit soup." Han Fei said solemnly, am I doing this for the swallowed spirit soup? I'm not. I'm just training myself. Only with a strong body can I survive better in the ocean. He Xiaoyu blinked. Why do I feel that you're fooling me? You're doing this for the swallowed spirit soup. One of the mentors said, huh? That's Qin Guang from our class. His spiritual heritage is level 2, high quality, and Han Fei is going to fight him. Wang Jia was rather dizzy too. Wasn't Han Fei a level 2 fisher? Since when could he challenge a level 6 fisher? A teacher from Wang Jia's class suddenly said, right, I remember now. I sensed that Han Fei was different this morning, so I asked him. I learned that he became a level 4 fisher. Wang Jia asked, Mr. Su, is it true? Mr. Su said, it's true. The boy said that he made a breakthrough after a life and death experience. While the fishing masters were still chatting, Han Fei and Qin Guang took action. The spiritual light between the two of them shone brightly, and a huge force burst out between the bamboo stick and the steel stick. Han Fei smashed all the way. Spiritual energy was flowing out of the bamboo stick every time he smashed it. After a long time, Han Fei began to sweep again. He didn't stop after 5 or 6 sweeps. Qin Guang, on the other hand, couldn't resist Han Fei's spiritual energy at all. It must be noted that there was a limit to how much spiritual energy a fisher had. Qin Guang only had 136 points of spiritual energy, but all his spiritual energy had been used to resist Han Fei's bamboo stick. How could he fight? After Han Fei smashed for the 16th time, Qin Guang's stick was finally smashed out of his hand, and he was blown away. Qin Guang's face was pale. He couldn't understand why he was beaten so badly by a level 4 fisher. More importantly, was there no limit to the guy's spiritual energy? Not just Qin Guang, all the fishing masters were dumbfounded. Could a level 4 fisher have so much spiritual energy to unleash? Are you kidding me? Han Fei smashed the bamboo stick 16 times. Even if he only gained 8 points of spiritual energy each time, it would still be 128 points. A level 4 fisher could have 128 points of spiritual energy. That was the spiritual energy that only a level 6 fisher could have, alright? Han Fei, on the other hand, simply picked up the bowl of swallowed spirit soup and gulped it down one bowl after another. Immediately, Han Fei looked much better. There was indeed a gap between a level 6 fisher and a level 4 fisher. The guy's body was stronger than his, but it could be a problem in a battle. Qin Guang would rather take a few hits than fight Han Fei. It was still hard to tell who would win the battle. Han Fei said, He Xiaoyu, help me drink some. I can't drink anymore. He Xiaoyu was almost in tears. I can't drink anymore either. I've had 13 bowls already. Among the fishing masters, a middle-aged fishing master found it weird. Why was his daughter involved in this? Also, the bamboo stick in Han Fei's hand seemed to belong to his daughter. The other fishing masters were lost for words. They had never seen anyone throw up after drinking the swallowed spirit soup. How many bowls had he had exactly? As a matter of fact, the swallowed spirit soup was completely useless for Han Fei. When he found that his current storage limit of spiritual energy was stuck at 139 points, he knew what was going on. However, it had nothing to do with his challenges. Although his spiritual energy storage limit couldn't be changed, the swallowed spirit soup was full of spiritual energy. A bowl of swallowed spirit soup was worth almost 10 yellow croakers. Now, even He Xiaoyu was throwing up after drinking the soup. It was not hard to imagine how much Han Fei had drunk. A student in the crowd was lost for words. Han Fei, you've had more than 30 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. Are you not going to pee? Han Fei, however, belched and said, I can hold it for a while longer. Let me ask, who else? Han Fei was still talking proudly, but he was lost for words when he saw the indescribable expressions on the students' faces. Why were they all withered? How was he supposed to do that? Han Fei. Han Fei said without looking back, one by one. This class isn't over yet. Don't be hasty. How many more classes are you going to fight? The voice sounded rather solemn and familiar. Han Fei turned around, only to see Wang Jie staring at him gloomily with a bunch of teachers next to him. Rolling his eyes, Han Fei immediately said, "Sir, well, I suddenly remembered that I need to pee. I'll go first, you can hold it for a while longer. Don't think about going anywhere." He Xiaoyu rose quickly. "Han Fei, give me your bamboo rod." Seeing that, Han Fei knew that he couldn't fight anymore, so he tossed the bamboo rod to He Xiaoyu. Then, He Xiaoyu's father said, "Little girl, come home with me." Everybody was greatly relieved to see that Han Fei was gone. The guy was finally gone. He had defeated a level 6 expert. Could it be that only level 7 experts could defeat him? How did the useless guy become so strong all of a sudden? Everybody knew that Tang Gu had a level 7 spiritual heritage, but Han Fei only had a level 1 spiritual heritage. Even if Tang Gu asked for the help of angels, he couldn't have grown so fast. On the playground. Narrowing his eyes, Wang Jie said, "I can understand that you've advanced. But what's with your spiritual energy?" Han Fei said, "Ha. Sir, my spiritual energy is endless." Pa! Han Fei immediately suffered a slap on the head. Wang Jie was lost for words. Endless spiritual energy. Even Fang Zhe, the angel from the city, would have to ask him if he had endless spiritual energy. You? Endless spiritual energy? Wang Jie said, "Let's talk nicely." Han Fei said, "Sir, the swallowed spirit soup in my stomach hasn't been fully digested yet, so my spiritual energy is constantly supplied." Wang Jie said, "That's bullshit. Can you transform your spiritual energy into 16 sweeping sticks in 1 minute?" Han Fei played dumb. "I can transform it as long as the swallowed spirit soup is in my stomach." Huh? It was Wang Jie's turn to be stunned. He asked again, "Can you transform it?" Han Fei said, "Yes. My spiritual energy will be back after I drink the swallowed spirit soup. I can beat them up with 1 bowl of swallowed spirit soup at most, or 2 bowls." Chapter 18. Wang Jie was suspicious about Han Fei's ability to absorb and transform spiritual energy. He had never seen anyone who could transform spiritual energy so fast. Was he born with it? If so, why did he wait until today to show it? Wang Jie said, "Why don't you try attacking me?" Han Fei said regretfully, "Master, we're on the same side. There's no need to waste spiritual energy, is there?" Wang Jie said, "Isn't your spiritual energy endless? Why would I waste it?" Han Fei said, "No, sir. It wasn't easy for me to fill my stomach with swallowed spirit soup. I can't waste it." Wang Jie said, "Just do it. What's the point of talking?" Han Fei complained, "Master, I don't have a rod. I borrowed it from He Xiaoyu." Wang Jie thought for a moment and said, "Wait a moment." A few minutes later, Wang Jie came and tossed an iron rod to Han Fei. "Try hitting me." Han Fei complained in his heart, "You're shameless enough to use an iron rod? Look at He Xiaoyu. She was holding a bamboo rod that was as powerful as a dozen iron rods." However, Han Fei knew that he couldn't avoid it, so he could only waste some spiritual energy. Han Fei smashed down hard, and the iron rod split the air in a whistling sound. Bam! 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 Wang Jie simply blocked it with his fishing rod. It was quite easy. He slashed, swept, and even stabbed Wang Jie, but he couldn't hurt him at all. Han Fei was shocked. Was a fishing master so strong? How strong was a great fishing master? How strong was Fang Zhe, who claimed to be a hidden fishing master? Wang Jie said, "He's very strong. Did you have any adventures in the sea that night?" Han Fei shook his head quickly. "No. Just a small fish tide." Wang Jie pondered for a moment. "You're very strong. You're as strong as a level 6 fisher. Are you born with extraordinary strength and a special constitution? But Wang Jia immediately shook his head. Han Fei only had a level 1, high-quality spiritual heritage. So what if he had those two extraordinary talents? Besides, it was impossible to tell whether or not it was Han Fei's talent. He had to wait and see. Wang Jia said, "Don't bother your classmates with your current situation. Since you're so strong, you should gain more experience in the general fishery. Try placing the hook below 5 meters. Remember, it must not exceed 8 meters. Master, shouldn't I be learning combat skills now?" Wang Jia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Combat skills? You haven't even mastered the sweeping stick technique, and you want to learn other combat skills? Let's talk about battle techniques when your soul is awakened or when you become a level 7 fisher. Seeing Han Fei's embarrassment, Wang Jia snorted. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Didn't you notice that all the students below level 7 use stick or fist techniques? That's because middle and low-level fishers can't grasp the essence of other battle techniques at all. Stick techniques and fist techniques are the most versatile and practical. Thank you for your guidance, sir. Han Fei temporarily gave up the idea of learning combat skills. After challenging for a long time, he found that everyone used stick techniques. Besides, rod techniques were a combat skill after all, and they were extremely violent when used to fight, so Han Fei didn't mind. Tang Ge didn't come back. He hadn't been heard from since he was taken away by Fang Zhe. Having drunk almost 40 bowls of swallowed spirit soup in the afternoon, Han Fei felt that his spiritual energy was overflowing, but it was just an illusion. The data in the demon purification pot soared. Owner Han Fei, level 4, intermediate fisher, spiritual energy greater than 1488, 139, spiritual heritage level 1, high quality, upgradable, main art avoid fishing, chapter 1, hook kiss, mortal level, divine quality. Han Fei was very excited to see his inventory of spiritual energy. He almost wanted to deduce another powerful art. Unfortunately, he wasn't even a fishing master yet. He couldn't even practice combat skills, much less arts. After a night of cultivation, he absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to temper his body. For some reason, although it was several times faster than soul fishing, it couldn't be compared to last night. Was it because there was no moon? In the meantime, Han Fei wanted to upgrade his spiritual heritage, but considering that he had to keep some of his trump cards, he held back. In the morning, Han Fei went to the port with his fishing rod. The port was always lively at any time of the day. Outside the port, there were 3 main roads, each of which was packed with people, and there were 5 such bustling ports in Tianshui town. Yellow croaker meatballs, 2 sea coins each. Green bait worms are on sale. Only 75 sea coins per box. Only for 1 day. Sea melon seeds. Fresh sea melon seeds, 5 sea coins per kilogram. Come and buy it now. Smelling snails are on sale. Only 10 today, 12 low-quality pearls per unit. Hurry up. Many people gathered around when they heard that there was a smelling snail. Boss, how about 10 low-quality pearls for a smelling snail? The boss said, no, it's not for sale. I've broken too many fishing lines to buy 10 smelling snails. Boss, I'll have 1. Boss, I'll have 2. Han Fei clicked his tongue. There were quite a lot of rich people here. He only bought 1 for 12 low-quality pearls, but it was sold crazily. Smelling snails were snails that lived at the bottom of the sea. Sometimes, deep-water fish would devour them. Most fishermen got them from fishing. Of course, some desperate fishermen would dive and dig from the bottom of the sea when they became a peak fisher. But such cases were rare, because the bottom of the sea was very dangerous. Even in regular fisheries, people could be killed. For example, they might be attacked by several snake belts or venomous sea snakes. However, there were always people who would do things that were profitable. For example, someone was running close with a coral branch and shouting, "Does anyone want a coral branch?" 1 mid-quality pearl per kilogram. Someone immediately approached him. Brother, I'll buy half a kilogram. Someone squeezed past him. Brother, I'll buy half a kilogram. Things like this happened almost every day. Han Fei looked at the dazzling sea goods, ranging from 1 sea coin to 1 mid-quality pearl. Since Han Fei was not in a hurry today, he spent a while looking around. He found that most of the snacks here were steamed without seasonings. Wouldn't he make a fortune if he opened a barbecue stall? Before Han Fei had time to think, he heard a commotion on the main road far away. Dozens of people walked to Han Fei around a middle-aged man. When he approached, Han Fei saw that the man was carrying a meat turtle on his shoulder. He glanced at it, and a bunch of data popped up. Name: a meat turtle, level A9, quality regular, spiritual energy greater than 188 points, effect increase blood and widen veins, collectible, inferior turtle shell. Han Fei was surprised. This was the most advanced sea beast he had ever seen, and it contained so much spiritual energy. Hiss! Many people gasped hard. Someone exclaimed, "Oh my God! How did this guy catch a meat turtle?" Someone surrounded the middle-aged brawny man. Brother, 5 mid-quality pearls is a lot. Why don't you just sell it? The middle-aged man shook his head stubbornly. I'm giving this meat turtle to my son for training. It's not for sale. The man around him, who was obviously a merchant, tried to persuade him. Brother, what level is your son? Does he lack weapons? Combat techniques? We can trade for them. The middle-aged man still shook his head. How rare was a meat turtle? Many fishermen could never catch one in their entire lives. It was all a coincidence, all right? It was the most expensive thing in the general fishery except for a few special items. The merchant said, Brother, let's cut to the chase. 6 mid-quality pearls is our limit. The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment. It was too much money. 6 mid-quality pearls was almost a year's income for a regular person. However, the middle-aged man only hesitated for a moment before he gritted his teeth. I'm not selling it. Exactly at this moment, the crowd was parted. A handsome young man dressed in white led a group of servants over. Seeing them, someone immediately exclaimed, the Wang family of heavenly water, a family of 5 fishing masters. Someone said in a low voice, I'm told that the Grand Master of the Wang family has become a great fishing master. It's over. This meat turtle will definitely belong to the Wang family. The young man looked at the middle-aged man with a smile and said, Uncle, why don't you sell this meat turtle to me? I'll give you 8 mid-quality pearls and a bottle of fish head body polishing fluid. The middle-aged man was stunned by the price and was somewhat dumbfounded. Uncle, you'd better think it through before you make a decision. Good things are always coveted. But before the middle-aged man could speak, another group of people walked over in a grandiose manner. A peddler quickly moved aside and shouted at Han Fei, It's Li Hu, the young master of the tigers from the east side. Get out of the way. The tigers from the east side was a notorious evil force in the Heavenly Water Village. It was said that the leader of the tigers was unstoppable in the level 1 fishery because of his rare spiritual beast, a tigerhead fish. On the sea, even great fishing masters had to show him respect. Li Hu glanced at the young man from the Wang family coldly. Wang Baiyu, since when can the Wang family rob the territory of the tigers? The young man, who was called Wang Baiyu, was not angry at all. Instead, he looked at him with a chuckle. The tigers can restrict the trade in the port. Or does the tigers think that nobody in the Heavenly Water Village can stop you? Li Hu said, then ask him if he dares to sell it. The middle-aged man immediately stopped thinking about it. He couldn't afford to piss off the tigers. Wang Baiyu said, then buy it. If you buy it, I'll rob it from you. It'll save me a lot of money. Han Fei looked at the young man from the Wang family calmly, but his words were extremely domineering. Li Hu grinned. Then why don't you try to rob me? The middle-aged man was quite pitiful. He could have blown up the 2 brats easily, but he dared not touch them because of their family background. Why don't we split it in half? Chapter 19. For a moment, everybody was looking for the source of the voice. Han Fei didn't mean it. Isn't it just a turtle? The uncle worked so hard to get it back, but you guys are fighting over it. Don't you see that the uncle is trembling? Coldness beamed out of Li Hu's eyes. Before he spoke, one of his men behind him scolded, "Boy, who allowed you to speak here?" Han Fei was speechless. So I can't even speak. Wang Baiyu smiled. The tigers are so arrogant. You don't even allow me to speak. If you dare to touch him, I'll chop off your hands. Li Hu sneered. He's right. I want the turtle shell and you can have the turtle meat. Wang Baiyu smiled disdainfully. What are you thinking? Can you use the turtle shell if I give it to you? In the entire Heavenly Water Village, only the Wang family has an armorist. If you can find a second armorist, you can have the turtle shell. Li Hu seemed too lazy to argue. He simply snorted. Beat it. Anything in the tiger's territory belongs to the tigers. Two people behind Li Hu unleashed a powerful aura. They were covered in spiritual energy and seemed to be covered in a layer of faint light. Only level 7 fishers could have such strength. The two of them rushed out like sharp arrows. Halfway through, they heard a hum, and 2 swords were shot from the sky, also wrapped in spiritual energy. Han Fei hurried to step back. Han Fei hurriedly stepped back. At that moment, he felt a powerful force that seemed to be able to tear him apart at any time. Swoosh, cold light flashed, and the 2 swords were stabbed into the ground. Then, 2 hands appeared on the ground. An armorist? Li Hu looked at the crowd in shock, only to see a middle-aged brawny man striding over with a huge box on his back. Third young master. The man walked to Wang Baiyu, greeted him respectfully, and then stood aside. Li Hu said, Good, good, good. Is the Wang family declaring war on the tigers? Before Wang Baiyu said anything, the middle-aged brawny man said indifferently, declaring war on the tigers. Let your father, Li Ju, say the same thing. This farce ended just as quickly as it started. Wang Baiyu chuckled and was about to leave. In the end, he said, By the way, Li Hu, the tortoise meat will be delivered to your house. Everyone on the street kept quiet out of fear. The middle-aged man who was carrying the meat tortoise didn't dare say anything. Someone walked in front of him and carried the meat tortoise. At the same time, they gave him the reward he deserved. Li Hu snorted and walked back, his eyes even colder. Han Fei, on the other hand, stood where he was. The scene just now was too shocking. 2 mystic rays flashed, and 2 arms fell to the ground. What if the mystic light was aimed at his head? Looking at the middle-aged brawny man carrying the box, Han Fei was shocked. An armorist? What the hell is that? He had never even heard of such a thing in his memories. Han Fei guessed that perhaps when he became a fishing master, he would naturally know all the answers. He was not in a hurry. After the battle, the street was filled with all kinds of shouts again, but Han Fei didn't want to stay for a moment. There were still too many unknown mysteries in this world waiting for him to understand, and one of the basic prerequisites to understand all this was to become a fishing master. At the departure port, it was the same female registrar. Han Fei said, Sister Qin, I'm going to see. Qin nodded. Yes. Register. Huh. You've made a breakthrough. Han Fei nodded. Yes. I was lucky enough to make a breakthrough. Qin nodded. But you're still too weak. Let's wait for the fishing boat over there. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Sister Qin, can I rent an 8-person fishing boat for myself? Qin was surprised. Rent an 8-person fishing boat? Can you afford the fish tax? She asked if Han Fei could afford the fish tax, but her hands were already recording. Han Fei thought that she would ask something, but she said casually, everybody has to pay the price for their choices. It just depends on whether or not they can afford the price. Few people would rent a fishing boat for themselves, so Han Fei's boat arrived very quickly. The reason why he rented an 8-person fishing boat was that there were 8 fish cabins. If the small fish tide happened again, he would make a lot of money. Han Fei boarded the boat and controlled it to fly to a place slightly further away from the general fishery. The general fishery was said to have a radius of 1,000 kilometers, but very few people could really run more than 500 kilometers. Because there was not enough spiritual energy to control the boat, even peak-level fishers could only run 600 or 700 kilometers away. As for Han Fei, he didn't intend to go so far. He planned to go 100 or 200 kilometers away. If he went too far, he wouldn't be able to come back. But in less than 10 minutes, Han Fei discovered something that shocked him. The ship was broken. The ship was out of control. It was flying away. Shoot, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? In the headquarters of the tigers in the Heavenly Water Village. Young master, I'm sure that guy won't come back. Li Hu nodded. Okay. Got it. For Li Hu, this was a trivial matter. He didn't even remember what Han Fei looked like. He only knew that someone interfered when he was fighting with Wang Baiyu, which disgusted him. That was all. Han Fei didn't know that he had been schemed against, at least not yet. Bam! With a bang, Han Fei found that the controller had exploded, and his eyeballs almost popped out. What's going on? Not only can you control spiritual energy, but why did your controller explode? Han Fei's face was dark. He didn't know how far he had flown. Anyway, there was no boat above the sea. Besides, the controller of the fishing boat had exploded, so the whole boat had no power. Even the suspension became a problem. The boat swayed and began to fall quickly. Shoot, am I going to die from the fall? At an altitude of hundreds of meters, the fishing boat was falling. Han Fei thought that it was over. How could the boat withstand such a heavy fall? It would be smashed into a pile of wood. Hearing the howling wind, Han Fei held the edge of the boat tightly. Dozens of meters before he entered the water, he suddenly jumped up from the boat and then fell into the sea. The moment he entered the water, Han Fei was very nervous. The fish in the sea were very scary. If a few blade fish or snake belts appeared, he could kill them in minutes. Fortunately, although he entered the water fast, there were no shoals of fish around. Even if there were, they were all scared away by the sudden shock. The first thing Han Fei did in the sea was to open his eyes and get on the boat. He didn't fall very fast. If the boat was of good quality, it wouldn't be damaged. But an accident happened. Far away, Han Fei saw a large green turtle that seemed to be attracted by the noise and swam to him. It was twice the size of regular green turtles. Shoot! When the big fish was only 5 meters away from him, the green turtle suddenly turned around, as if it had lost interest in him. Han Fei heaved a sigh of relief and was about to swim up, but then he saw a few shining knives. Han Fei almost wanted to cry. Those were blade fish, and there were several of them. Han Fei dared not move at all. You won't eat me, will you? You don't have a floating monster as big as me. Besides, I'm not a green bait. As he expected, the blade fish circled around Han Fei and swam away. One of them even swam past Han Fei's head and looked at Han Fei with its big eyes, as if wondering why it hadn't seen this thing before. Han Fei put his hand on his waist and took out the blade fish dagger. Who knew if the blade fish would be stupid enough to come and slash him? Seeing that the blade fish did not move, Han Fei waved his hands and decided to float to the surface of the water. The moment Han Fei was about to swim, he discovered to his surprise that his vision in the water was so good. Also, after shaking his body, he found that he could move freely in the sea. Were people in this world born with swimming skills? But before Han Fei swam to the surface, he saw a snake-like thing wriggling close at a high speed. Shoot, a snake belt? Han Fei felt that he was unlucky. The green turtles and the blade fish might not have attacked him unless he was in danger. But the snake belt was different. It loved warm things, and what could be warmer than itself at this moment? It's trying to crawl into my body. Thinking of that, Han Fei dived deeper. If he stuck his head out of the water, he would only be pierced by the snake belt when he couldn't see anything. Holding the dagger, Han Fei faced the snake belt warily. Chapter 20. Han Fei's heart was pounding. He tried to calm himself down and circled with the snake belt with the blade fish dagger. Naturally, the human body couldn't react as fast as the snake belt. Thankfully, Han Fei was a cultivator who lived on the sea and had to be more agile. All of a sudden, Han Fei sensed a shadow darting at him from the bottom left. He didn't dare to slack off. Holding the dagger, Han Fei tightened his muscles and unleashed his spiritual energy to cover his body. Thankfully, he didn't upgrade his spiritual heritage with spiritual energy, or he wouldn't have enough spiritual energy. Other people wouldn't dare to do that. Only high-level experts above level 7 dared to cover their body with spiritual energy, because it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. If 7 or 8 points of spiritual energy were consumed when spiritual energy was injected into the rod, then 30 or 40 points of spiritual energy would be consumed when one covered his body with spiritual energy. However, the moment the spiritual energy covered his body, Han Fei was as agile as a fish. His body was no longer affected by the water current, and his eyesight and reflexes immediately caught up. Goyalu, Han Fei slashed at it, but it was still not as fast as the snake belt. He saw this thing open its mouth wide, turn around, and directly attack his chest. Not daring to slack off, Han Fei dodged, waved the dagger with his right hand, and punched with his left. Because both punches were fast, the snake belt was hit. However, Han Fei didn't use much strength, and the snake belt was only half a meter away from him. Han Fei quickly turned around, only to see that the snake belt was coming at him again. It was as fast as a streak of light in the ocean. Han Fei didn't know any underwater combat techniques. He regretted that he didn't have the iron rod in his hand. If he had the rod, he would have been scared of him. However, he only had a dagger in his hand, so he could only use it as a rod. Woo! Woo! He waved the dagger in the ocean, and the sound became weird. Han Fei filled the dagger with spiritual energy and slashed randomly. Although it was a random attack, it was still a deterrent to the snake belt. Then he felt a pain in his wrist. It turned out that the snake belt had bitten his wrist when he was unprepared. Han Fei didn't know that fish were also intelligent. The dagger that Han Fei infused with spiritual energy scared him. Then why didn't he just bite his hand and make him throw away the dagger? Just when Han Fei thought he was going to lose a piece of flesh, just when Snakebite thought that his plan was about to succeed, Han Fei's hands suddenly flashed, and a gourd suddenly appeared, shining. Snakebite seemed to be startled. He turned his head and wanted to run. But could Han Fei make it do what it wanted? You've been tormenting me for half a day, and I've consumed hundreds of spiritual energy. How can I let you run away? Immediately, Han Fei grabbed the snakebelt's tail. Guessing that the snakebelt's tail was slippery, Han Fei stabbed the knife into the snakebelt's tail. Immediately, squeaks echoed in the seawater, and then the snakebelt dragged Han Fei down crazily. Han Fei was stunned too. Before he could react, he was suddenly dragged to the bottom of the sea. When he wanted to let go, he had already dived dozens of meters, and Han Fei felt the pressure from the seawater. Damn it, it's all your fault. They've already run away. Why are you still fighting like an idiot? His original intention was to let go immediately and swim up, but when he glanced around, he saw several snake belts swimming in the water. Apart from the snake belts, there were also green turtles, and there seemed to be a giant meat turtle far away. As for the other fish, they were too colorful for him to recognize, nor did he have time to do so. Damn it, a snake belt has already put me in such a situation. If I let go now, won't I be killed in minutes? Han Fei didn't dare to let go, but as he dived deeper and deeper, the pressure on him grew greater and greater. For some reason, Han Fei found that after fighting underwater for so long and being dragged all the way here, he didn't feel the lack of oxygen at all. His body functions were normal, and he was still holding his breath. He felt that he could stay underwater for another 10 or 20 minutes. But even so, he couldn't stay underwater forever. Seeing that he was about to reach the bottom, Han Fei hurriedly grabbed the dagger, grabbed the snake belts wound with one hand, and pulled it back. As he pulled, the snake belt was immediately cut into halves by the blade fish's dagger, and blood immediately flowed out. But Han Fei couldn't care less about the snake belt. He hurriedly swam to the other side with the dagger. Sure enough, just a few seconds later, a fish that came out of nowhere rushed up and tore at the snake belt. Han Fei watched the ferocious snake belt turn into a long fish bone in the blink of an eye. Seeing the coral reefs, Han Fei hurried to swim to them. It was too horrifying. If dozens of fish bit him, even a fishing master would be gnawed into bones, not to mention a fisherman. But when Han Fei saw the bottom of the sea, he was completely shocked. The bottom of the sea was colorful. The corals were crimson, stretching for thousands of meters, and the bottom of the sea was full of all kinds of shells. There were big sea clams, huge flower toads, half-meter-long green crabs that raised their pincers and looked at Han Fei warily, and sea anemones that were full of tentacles were waving in the water. For a moment, Han Fei was dazzled, and a series of data popped up in front of his eyes. Han Fei was a little stunned by the data. Weren't there too many creatures? He couldn't read all of them at all. In the blink of an eye, a colorful fish was sucked by the sea anemone, and then the dense tubes were inserted into the fish's body, turning the fish into fish bones. Creeped out, Han Fei immediately stayed away from the sea anemone. Han Fei turned his head and tried to look at something else, only to see that a starfish the size of a basin suddenly spun like a top and crawled into the mud at the bottom of the sea. Han Fei even saw a sea clam several meters long with a glittering pearl in its open mouth. Han Fei concluded that it was not a regular pearl, because it was glowing. Hiss. Is it a high-quality pearl? Han Fei took a closer look. It's delicious and can improve one's body quality. Collectible ghost bead, which can nurture veins and vessels. Wow, that's a treasure. Han Fei knew that items that nurtured veins and vessels could easily cost dozens of mid-quality pearls. Ordinary people might not be able to buy them even if they saved money for a lifetime. Han Fei looked around, only to find that the bottom of the sea was not so dangerous. Although fish half a meter long were swimming here and there, nobody regarded Han Fei as an enemy. Many smaller fish were even wandering around Han Fei. Han Fei thought of something and was about to pick the pearl. But in the next moment, a black fish charged at him, as if it were going to compete with him for it. Han Fei was angry at first. It wasn't easy for him to come down here, and you're trying to compete with me for the pearl? But then, Han Fei stopped talking, because the edge of the sea clam suddenly bared countless sharp teeth and closed them. To Han Fei's horror, the black fish was bitten into halves. Han Fei was so scared that he was sweating hard. Although he couldn't sweat right now, his blood was still freezing. Fuck, this is a scam. Is this a fucking clam? I've never heard that a sea clam has teeth. Han Fei looked at the smaller sea clams that were scattered on the ground and then at the bigger one, only to lose interest. No wonder it was called a ghost blade clam. Such a huge sea clam couldn't be ordinary. Wasn't the undersea species too weird? In the distance, something that looked like a spring was bouncing over from afar. When it got closer, it looked like a conical nail no matter how one looked at it. But Han Fei knew that they were called oncomelania snails. When they were attacked, they would stab people with their nails. If regular fishermen caught an oncomelania snail, they would have to be careful not to be nailed, or their bodies would be pierced through. Han Fei swam like a fish. He was not scared of the coral reefs. They were like rocks and would not attack him. Also, he could use the coral reefs to protect himself when he was in danger. Of course, he had to avoid places that he couldn't see clearly. God knew how many creatures were hiding in the coral reefs. Han Fei only wanted to find a stick or something that was suitable to be a stick. His first thought was to cut a coral, but he couldn't cut it at all. Even though he filled his dagger with spiritual energy, he only managed to damage a small part of it. So hard. Han Fei's eyes glittered. He began to cut a long coral with the blade fish dagger. It would be much more powerful than an iron rod if it were made into a stick. Unfortunately, it was not a bamboo stick. A long time later, Han Fei began to swim in the coral reefs with a coral stick. He was thinking about how he could return to the surface of the water. He sensed that the oxygen was running out. Chapter 21. Could corals grow fruits? The idea flashed in Han Fei's head, but he immediately rejected it. Han Fei swam closer and found that something was wrong. Why were there so many bones here? Yes, there were bones everywhere. There were fish bones, turtle shells, and even human bones. More importantly, there was more than one human bone. When he looked at the fruit on the crimson tree, Han Fei was shocked to see data. Name: purple bamboo tree, level 10, quality, ultra quality, spiritual energy. Effect: collectible, a purple bamboo fruit, purple bamboo fruit. Han Fei immediately remembered that Fang Zhe threw a crimson sea fruit to the village leader. Han Fei didn't see it clearly, but he saw how excited the village leader was. He didn't expect to see such a marvelous thing. It was indeed an ultra-quality thing, but he wondered how it was compared to the crimson sea fruit. Wait, Han Fei immediately calmed down. There were bones everywhere. There must be a great danger ahead. Otherwise, why would those people and creatures die? Han Fei immediately retreated a few meters and saw a blade fish dagger stuck in the coral. It must have belonged to the dead people. Apart from the blade fish dagger, Han Fei recognized that there seemed to be a fishing rod and an iron rod. Seeing the iron rod, Han Fei immediately pulled out the iron fishing rod on his back. The coral rod was for self-defense, but it wasn't easy to use something as crude as coral in a real fight. But the iron rod, no matter how lousy it was still an iron rod. Hew, Han Fei threw out the fishing hook. It not only hooked the iron rod, but it also circled around the rod. That was the difference between the godly hook kiss and regular fishing. Ordinary fishing techniques were used to deal with fish, which required fishing skills to prevent the fish from escaping. Hook kiss, on the other hand, combined the hook, the fishing line, and the fishing rod into one with a unique hook technique. It could even be used in combat. However, Han Fei had only practiced it for a while and wasn't familiar with it yet. One of the purposes of going out to sea this time was to practice hook kiss. Now, it was just the initial application of hook kiss, and it had already amazed him. Han Fei grabbed the iron rod and pulled back the dagger that was stabbed into the coral reef in the same way. As for the others, he saw human bones, but he didn't see any weapons. There were a few fishing rods, but the best ones were made of fine iron. He couldn't carry them now, and they would only be a burden to him. Turtle shell. Both the Wang family and the tigers are fighting over the turtle shell. It must be something good. Swish, the hook hooked over, and with a pull, Han Fei's face changed. So heavy. It weighed more than 100 kilograms. How was he supposed to carry it? Han Fei's heart was bleeding. It was not that he did not want it, but the turtle shell was too heavy for him to float. What a huge loss. Entering a treasure mountain but returning empty-handed is too much of a loss. However, Han Fei did not think too much about it. He gave up on the turtle shell and focused his attention on the purple bamboo tree. Han Fei was very tempted. This purple bamboo tree was born to be made into a stick. Han Fei was wondering if he should try. What if he hooked it? But what if he failed? What if there was some trouble? In the end, Han Fei couldn't help it. On the path of cultivation, one had to keep getting stronger. Life and death were predestined. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. Only with strength could one have the right to speak. For Han Fei, risking his life was a common thing. He made up his mind and took the risk. Even though he had made the gamble, Han Fei was afraid of death. Therefore, he retreated another 10 meters and stuck himself inside a coral bush. His feet were nothing but a stepping stone. If an accident happened, he could eject immediately. Even if he couldn't run away, the coral reefs could help him. Damn! Han Fei immediately made up his mind and threw the hook at the purple bamboo fruit. His heart was beating fast. Closer, closer, swish, the hook instantly hooked onto the fruit. But the moment the hook touched the purple bamboo fruit, Han Fei felt the corals shake and then he saw a big head poke out from one of the holes. Name: Sea Dragon, Level 18, Quality Rare, contains spiritual energy. Effect: collectible. Wow! Damn, a sea dragon. A level 18 rare monster. I'm screwed. I'm screwed. The sea dragon was not a real dragon, but a sea python, or more precisely, a sea snake. It was just one of the more powerful sea snakes. Wasn't it a level 1 demon snake? Why did it appear here? Han Fei bet that he was absolutely no match for it. Han Fei immediately wanted to retract the line and run, but the fruit didn't come off, and the fishing line was straight. Seeing that he couldn't snatch it, Han Fei gave up decisively. After all, even if he could snatch the treasure, he had to be alive to enjoy it. Han Fei immediately shook the fishing rod, transmitting the force from the rod to the fishing line and then to the fishing hook. Instantly, the fishing hook came off, and Han Fei cast the hook again, this time not at the purple bamboo fruit, but at a coral dozens of meters behind him. In the blink of an eye, the sea serpent rushed out and stared at Han Fei with bloodshot eyes, as if it were saying, "How dare you rob me of my stuff?" Seeing that the sea serpent's big head was charging at him, Han Fei pulled the hook hard and cast it to the coral on the other side with a swish. A strange scene unfolded in the coral. Han Fei cast the hook now and then, and wherever the hook landed, Han Fei would quickly fly to it. Every time Han Fei flew out, the coral behind him would be broken by the sea serpent's head. The whole process was like Spider-Man's. He flew among the buildings with spider threads. Han Fei said, "Brother, I'm really not robbing you of your stuff. Can we talk it out?" "That's it. There's no way out." The coral was almost gone, and he was back to where he came from. Taking a deep breath, Han Fei made up his mind and swam to the sea anemones. Unfortunately, he was too slow, and the sea serpent was too fast. The sea serpent was about to bite him. Han Fei gritted his teeth and cast the hook at the ghost blade clam that was opening its mouth. Crack! The sound of teeth clenching came into Han Fei's ears. It was too dangerous. This place was too dangerous. Hew! The ghost blade clam's mouth was aimed at Han Fei, as if it were waiting for Han Fei to come to it. Right when Han Fei was about to approach it, he suddenly leaned upward and did a somersault, bypassing the ghost blade clam. In the next second, a big head hit the ghost blade clam. If the ghost blade clam were conscious, it would have been lost for words. How could such a big head extend in? It couldn't bite it. Its sharp teeth protruded, and it tried to bite the sea serpent, only to be stabbed into the sea serpent's flesh. Hoo! The sea serpent roared and crashed into a stone. Clang! As if metal and stone had collided, the ghost blade clam fell from the sea serpent's head. If Han Fei had looked back, he would have found that the sea serpent had lost more than half of its teeth, and there was a big hole in its shell. It was basically dead. A green crab watched the scene with its pincers raised. Han Fei couldn't care less. He cast out the hook, hooked the crab's leg, and threw it to the sea serpent. Crack! Pooh! The half-meter-long green crab was bitten into pieces, and one of its pincers was still hanging in the sea serpent's mouth, picking out a piece of flesh. Han Fei exclaimed, "Shoot! Again? Bro, do you not want your hometown anymore?" Han Fei grew anxious. What if the sea serpent chased after him relentlessly? He couldn't beat it at all. Looking at the sea serpent's tentacles that were floating in the seawater, Han Fei gritted his teeth and decided to try his best. Han Fei's hook landed on the sea serpent's tentacles. In the next moment, all the sea serpent's tentacles floated up. There was a tiger in front and a wolf behind. Han Fei dashed at the sea serpent in the blink of an eye. Thousands of tentacles were waiting for him. Han Fei unleashed spiritual energy from the iron rod in his hand. He didn't know how much spiritual energy he had injected into it, but he simply slashed it out. The sea serpent's tentacles tilted to the other side. But Han Fei still fell into the sea serpent's tentacles. Little did Han Fei expect that a bloody mouth would come at him when he was about to lunge at the sea serpent. I'm doomed. I'm doomed. Han Fei felt that he had been swallowed. The good news was that the coral rod happened to be stuck in the sea serpent's mouth. Han Fei failed to hold the iron rod and dropped it outside of the sea serpent. Shoot! It's so tight, Han Fei felt that he couldn't move at all. The sea serpent's muscles were constricting and wriggling. Han Fei hadn't been completely swallowed by the sea serpent yet, but who knew what would happen in the next second? He tried to hold the blade fish dagger and cut it in the space of only a few inches. Bam! 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 The sea serpent was struggling violently. After only one moment, thousands of holes had been added to its body. Han Fei wasn't any better. Some of the tentacles had penetrated the sea serpent's body and penetrated deep into its body. Demon purification pot, absorb it. Han Fei thought that he was doomed. There was no telling if the demon purification pot was working, but the muscles that tightened around him were slightly loosened. Die, Han Fei tossed and turned with all his might. His body was incredibly sore. He wondered if his legs had already been corroded into bones. Thinking of that, Han Fei struggled crazily and waved the blade fish dagger crazily. A piece of meat almost fell into his mouth. Pooh! It's so bitter, Han Fei thought of something. Snake gallbladder. The sea serpent struggled less and less. Under the double attack of the sea anemone's tentacles and the demon purification pot, it was impossible for it to break free from the tentacles. Suddenly, its body stiffened and stopped moving. With a sizzling sound, a glowing figure quickly jumped out of a snakeskin. Han Fei was covered in blood, but he dared not be careless. The moment he came out, he threw out his iron fishing rod. After a swish, Han Fei was flung away. Then, the place where he was at was filled with tentacles. Han Fei's heart was pounding. Even though he was protected by spiritual energy, dozens of holes had been left on his body. In the ocean, bleeding was extremely dreadful. How dare you chase me? How dare you be arrogant? How dare you bite me? Chapter 22. Han Fei snuck to the ghost blade clam immediately, picked up the ghost bead, and left. Han Fei was overjoyed when he came to the purple bamboo tree. He was about to uproot the tree. It was more like a straight stick than a tree. It wasn't as difficult as he imagined. Han Fei concentrated spiritual energy on his hands and finally uprooted the tree with all his strength. Hardly had he pulled it out when the purple bamboo fruit fell. For a moment, Han Fei felt that he was intoxicated. The fruit was emitting such an intense fragrance. The fragrance of the fruit spread on his skin, penetrated his blood, and entered his mouth. However, Han Fei was panicking. He almost couldn't stand the intense smell, not to mention the fish at the bottom of the sea. Also, he was covered in blood. He saw dozens of big green crabs crawling to the coral reefs. Gudu, Han Fei stuffed the fruit into his mouth and was about to run away. However, the moment the purple bamboo fruit entered his body, the heat surged in his body, and he couldn't run anymore. Han Fei felt that he was cooked. His skin turned red, and he couldn't have been hotter. That kind of scorching energy caused the gourd on his wrist to continuously shine, and a large amount of energy entered through his wrist. Han Fei, on the other hand, felt that his muscles were tightened as if he were being baptized. His body became solid, and his blood was running so fast that he could almost hear the sound of it. Han Fei couldn't move, but he saw that hundreds of big green crabs were staring at him and clamping their pincers. Then, after a crisp sound, Han Fei felt that he had made a breakthrough, and his body was slightly better. At this moment, the green crabs were densely packed. Han Fei trembled. The energy in his body was still on a rampage. Part of it entered his wrist, and part of it flowed inside his body. It seemed to be absorbed crazily by his body that had just made a breakthrough. Although Han Fei wasn't in a good condition, he could move now. He had no time to care about that. Apart from the big green crabs, the few big black fish dozens of meters above his head also extended their fishing rods. Caught by Han Fei's hook, the big black fish tried to escape in pain and swam upward with Han Fei. After swimming only dozens of meters, the big black fish seemed to realize that it couldn't run away anymore and crashed into Han Fei. Shoot! Bang! Han Fei's internal organs were all over the place, and he vomited a mouthful of air. He's already breathed out. Han Fei has reached his limit. He has to take a breath. Han Fei struggled to hold the big black fish, but he seemed to have scratched the scales and cut his hands. Go up! Han Fei stabbed the dagger into the fish's head. Feeling the pain, the big black fish tried to escape again, but its head was controlled by Han Fei, so it could only swim upwards. Han Fei looked back, only to see a dense swarm of fish chasing after him. He was so scared that he almost peed himself. The big black fish was extremely fast, and in just a few dozen breaths, it broke through the water and jumped up. Han Fei quickly took a deep breath. Then he saw that the fishing boat hundreds of meters away was still intact. Why was this fishing boat so sturdy? Go! Go! With a dagger in its head, the big black fish couldn't do anything to Han Fei at all. It could only run in the direction Han Fei guided it to. Quick, 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 it could be said that he was racing against time. Just now, a big mouth bit his calf. Hoo! Han Fei screamed. Not daring to knock the fish off his foot, he tried his best to control the big black fish below him. When he was about 100 meters away from the fishing boat, Han Fei swung the fishing rod hard and hooked it firmly to the boat. Pulled by spiritual energy, Han Fei finally got on the boat. The big black fish behind him had already been eaten. Bang, 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 after a dozen blows, the big black fish on his foot was finally beaten to death, but it still didn't let go. Han Fei forced it open. Hoo! Having no time to care about the blood on his calf, Han Fei lay on the fishing boat with his arms and legs stretched out. It was too fucking dangerous. In just dozens of minutes, he felt that he was going to die many times. It was a miracle that he survived. A few minutes later, Han Fei sat up in excitement. He felt that his body was full of pure muscle strength and explosive force. When he clenched his fists, they were cracking. Han Fei looked at his wrist. The calabash was still flashing, but nothing changed after a long time, so he checked the data. Owner Han Fei, level 5, intermediate fisher, spiritual energy greater than 682, 159, spiritual heritage level 1, high quality, upgradable, main art avoid fishing, chapter 1, hook kiss, mortal level, divine quality. Han Fei was stunned. He took a deep breath. Damn it! I've lost more than 800 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei gasped. If it were someone else, they would have been killed many times. Even he would be doomed if he ran out of spiritual energy. Besides, he had a purple bamboo fruit, which contained a lot of spiritual energy. But now, he only had less than 700 points of spiritual energy left. Han Fei weighed the purple bamboo tree in his hand and couldn't help but smile. He wondered how it would compare to a bamboo stick. Suddenly, Han Fei felt a sharp pain in his palm. He quickly opened his hand, only to be dumbfounded. In his palm, a green calabash grew out of his body. The delicate calabash was slightly smaller than an apple, with a tender leaf at the top. It's real. Han Fei's eyes widened. How did the calabash grow out? He flicked it with his finger, only to find that the calabash didn't move at all. Then, to his surprise, he found that the calabash seemed to be stuck to his hand and couldn't be shaken off. Han Fei curiously put the calabash in front of his eyes and observed it up and down. Suddenly, a light flashed, and then Han Fei found himself in a dark void. Around him, countless complicated words were floating up and down. In front of him, 2 lines of words were erected. Han Fei couldn't read the words, but he recognized the 2 lines, or rather, the 2 words. Refining. Forge the universe. Among them, refining was the most dazzling and eye-catching. In contrast, forge the universe was lackluster. Other than that, Han Fei could sense some other words around him, but these words were now scattered. They were all densely packed tiny patterns that he could not recognize at all. Refining? Han Fei thought of something and understood it in his head. Activating this function required 2,000 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei was relieved. 2,000 points of spiritual energy was not a big deal. Then, Han Fei looked at Forge the Universe. If refining meant to refine weapons, what did Forge the Universe mean? Shoot! 10,000 points of spiritual energy. Why don't you just rob a bank? Han Fei scoffed. Are you kidding me? Where can I get so much spiritual energy? I'll have to drink more than 200 bowls of swallowed spirit soup. Han Fei was lost for words. He had been excited for a long time, thinking that the demon purification pot would undergo drastic changes after absorbing the energy of the purple bamboo fruit, but it still required spiritual energy. Since he didn't have enough spiritual energy, Han Fei didn't think too much about it. When he opened his eyes, he found that the calabash in his hand was gone. As he thought of it, the calabash popped up again. TSK, TSK, TSK. Interesting. This must be a divine weapon, right? It must be. I have to keep it a secret. Han Fei finally glanced at the big black fish next to him. Name young ironhead fish level 8 equality regular spiritual energy greater than 42 points effect long-term consumption can increase one's strength the collectible ironhead fish brain can promote energy absorption and strengthen one's body quality ironhead fish? Did I come to the level 1 fishery? Ironhead fish was a fish that usually appeared in the level 1 fishery. It was a dangerous fish that liked to hit people and boats with its head. However, this ironhead fish seemed much smaller than the ones he had seen before. Under normal circumstances, one's bones could be crushed if one was hit by this fish. Han Fei immediately remembered that he was bumped into in the sea. Not to mention how painful it was, it almost knocked the shit out of him. Suddenly, he knocked the fish's head with the purple bamboo. Clang, Han Fei knocked it again, this time with great strength. Seeing that the fish's head was deflated, Han Fei took a long breath in relief. It was indeed very hard. If it were an adult ironhead fish, its head would have been crushed. It seemed that he was lucky that he was still in an ordinary fishery. If he were in the level 1 fishery, he wouldn't have dared to fish. Han Fei was seriously injured, mainly because of the corrosion of the sea serpent's stomach acid. In the end, he was hit by the ironhead fish cub. He felt that his internal organs were all twisted. His calf was bitten and bleeding. Huh. The wound is healing. When Han Fei wanted to check the wound on his calf, he accidentally discovered that the wound on his calf had shrunk a lot. A moment later, the wound was even smaller, and the corroded flesh was growing again. Could it be? Is it the effect of the snake gallbladder? Or the purple bamboo fruit? Several minutes later, when Han Fei calmed down, he felt that his eyes and ears were clearer, and his body felt soft and comfortable as if warm water were running through it. About an hour later, Han Fei stood up and warmed himself up, only to feel refreshed. His wounds had mostly recovered. At this speed, he would be back to his peak state in another hour. But immediately, Han Fei's face dropped. The coral rod, the fine iron rod, the turtle shell, and the sea serpent's skin were gone. However, the ghost pearl that he picked up in the mouth of the ghost blade clam seemed to be nourishing his veins. Should he eat it? Forget it. I'll keep it for now. I'd better wait for my body to recover. Han Fei couldn't help but daydream. There were too many treasures at the bottom of the ocean. Clams almost covered the bottom of the ocean, hundreds of green crabs, oncomelania hopped here and there, and corals piled up into mountains. Damn it, I'll definitely save a few thousand points of spiritual energy when I reach a high level and go down again. Han Fei would have been regarded as a lunatic if other people knew what he was thinking. Even great fishing masters didn't have a few thousand points of spiritual energy, not to mention high-level fishers. Han Fei did not know that the human bones he saw at the bottom of the ocean were all fishing masters. The reason why they were killed was simple. They were killed by the flood dragon when they did not have enough spiritual energy. In a place like the bottom of the ocean, if there was not enough spiritual energy, a snake belt could even kill a fishing master, not to mention a sea serpent. Seeing that his wounds were healed, Han Fei looked around. There was not a single ship, and there were only some big birds in the sky. Fine, I'll settle the score with the port after I go back. How could they assign a faulty ship to me? However, one who survived a great disaster was bound to have good fortune later on. Not only did his strength break through, but he also had a purple bamboo. This was a top-grade spirit tree. Chapter 23. Hook Kiss was much more powerful than immobility spell. Han Fei had studied it carefully. The immobility technique that everybody used could first keep one as steady as an old dog. Spiritual energy could only be channeled into one's body after the first step. Spiritual energy could be channeled into the fishing line and the hook through the fishing rod to attract the attention of the fish and weaken the threat that the line and hook pose to the fish. However, the immobility technique had a major shortcoming, which was that it took a long time and the hook might be unhooked. Hook Kiss, on the other hand, was much more powerful. As long as one knew the fish's location, one could simply channel spiritual energy into the fishing line and hook and entangle the fish as fast as a snake. Putong, a yellow fish was thrown into the cabin by Han Fei casually. Han Fei murmured, "Wait, I vaguely sensed the waves in the water when I cast the hook. It seems that I can save some spiritual energy if I simply hook it." Putong, Han Fei had thrown the yellow fish into the cabin for the 7th time. "Indeed, I've consumed less spiritual energy. Ha! I'm a genius." Han Fei was very excited. Although the consumption was only 1 point lower, he always consumed less spiritual energy than other people, which meant that he could store more spiritual energy than other people. That was the key. After half a day, Han Fei used up a box of green bait, and the cabin was filled with yellow fish. Han Fei caught almost 50 yellow fish, but more than 30 of them were drained by him. Even so, there were still almost 20 fish in the cabin. Seeing that his spiritual energy had been restored to 842 points, Han Fei stopped, or he wouldn't have enough to pay the fish tax. "No, I can't catch yellow fish anymore. There's only one box of green bait left. It's getting late. I should be able to fish for blade fish now, right? It's getting late now." The first fish was a green turtle. Han Fei swept the green stones with his rod, and the stones fell on the boat. Perhaps because he wasn't good at it, Han Fei's face was pale after being hit several times. However, if anybody else were watching, they would have been shocked. Did Han Fei not need to resist the green turtles with spiritual energy? He could only resist the green turtles with his body. Han Fei knocked the green turtle out and mumbled, "What a loss." Using Hook Kiss once consumed 6 points of spiritual energy. If he wanted to completely block the green stone, he would need another 7 or 8 points of spiritual energy. The demon purification pot swallowed a green turtle for no more than a dozen points of spiritual energy. Let's try fishing for blade fish. Han Fei cast the hook again and lowered the fishing line 5 meters below the surface. It was hard to know what was caught at such a depth. As long as it wasn't a tentacle lobster, anything would be fine. Although the snake belt was fast, as long as he covered his whole body with spiritual energy and activated his combat techniques, he could always kill it with 80 points of spiritual energy. However, the tentacle lobster was extremely destructive, so it was better for him not to catch it. Fishing blade fish was much more difficult than fishing green turtles. Otherwise, the blade fish dagger wouldn't be so precious. Basically, the chance of a blade fish taking the bait was only 1/5 that of a green turtle, and the chance of getting a knife was even lower, because the blade fish only had one chance to strike the fish after it was out of the water. If it couldn't kill its opponent with one attack, it would be killed. So, its attack was extremely tough. Last time, Han Fei was almost chopped into pieces. If the knife hadn't deviated, he would have been killed. This was the 7th time he cast the hook. Han Fei could feel that the hook was shaking and that a knife seemed to have slashed through the air. However, he couldn't use hook kiss randomly. After all, the blade fish had a knife and could easily cut the fishing line. Suddenly, Han Fei's hands trembled. With the emergence of spiritual energy, the fishing line shivered like a whip. Come up. Han Fei pulled hard, and a black shadow quickly broke out of the water. Hew! A cold knife darted at him like a lightning. Han Fei was prepared for it. The purple bamboo in his hand glowed, and Han Fei jumped up and smashed the knife. Clang! The knife pierced through the deck and into the cabin. Han Fei waved the purple bamboo again and smashed the blade fish's head. The blade fish without a knife was not as sturdy as the green turtles without stones. Han Fei killed it with one blow. It cost me 6 points of spiritual energy to fish, but 10 points of spiritual energy to strike it. A blade fish without a knife only costs 20 points of spiritual energy. However, this knife is quite valuable. I can trade it for 50 low-quality pearls. That's not bad. When night fell, Han Fei caught 3 blade fish and 3 green turtles in total. His box of bait was half empty. When he was about to continue fishing, he heard creaking sounds from the bottom of the boat, as if something was crawling. Han Fei immediately had goosebumps. Did he even need to think about it? He could tell that it was the tentacle lobster. Without hesitation, Han Fei crawled into a cabin. The lobster was not very strong, but its tentacles were very dangerous. When the green turtles were shot out, he would be hit by stones at worst, but he could take it with his current body. The blade fish only had one knife. After one slash, the blade fish would be meat on the chopping board. But for the tentacle lobster, as long as its long tentacles were still moving, it would attack continuously. Its long tentacles lashed like whips and were as swift as unsheathed swords. Han Fei was very sure that even if he caught a tentacle lobster, he would have to waste a lot of spiritual energy. It was not worth it. He thought that the tentacle lobster would leave, but it was different this time. Han Fei could hear the tentacle lobster crawling to the side of the boat. Shoot! It's getting on the boat again. Han Fei was lost for words. That was outrageous. I didn't even try to fish you, but you climbed onto the boat? As he expected, Han Fei soon discovered that the tentacle lobster was crawling on the deck. Why are you so capricious? I'm the hunter here. I'm hiding in the cabin, but you're lying on the deck. After a while, the tentacle lobster even crawled over his head and made poochie poochie sounds. Huh? Why do I feel that it's eating? Han Fei waited for a long time, only to find that the noises were still going on. A moment later, Han Fei heard a splash from the cabin next door. It was the sound of fish being scooped out of the water. Immediately, Han Fei's face changed greatly. Damn it! Is this guy eating my fish? Han Fei couldn't have looked more awful. The cabin where he threw the green turtles and the blade fish was right next to him. I didn't even eat them myself, and this guy ate one of them. You want to fish more? Damn it! You're asking for death if you touch my spiritual energy. Han Fei suddenly opened the fish cabin and jumped out with a swish with the purple bamboo. He couldn't hold it in anymore. That's nearly 20 points of spiritual energy. Do you know how hard it was for me to fish them? The tentacle lobster was quite shocked and hurried to run a couple of meters away. The lobster was more than 2 meters long, and its 2 tentacles were even longer than its body. More importantly, there were 2 short tentacles above the 2 long tentacles. Han Fei took a closer look, only to discover that it was another tentacle lobster. 2 tentacle lobsters were stacked on top of each other, except that the one on top was half the size of the one on top. Han Fei asked, "Shoot. 2 of them?" He glanced at them, and information popped up in his mind. Name: Tentacle Lobster Level 8 Equality Regular Spiritual Energy greater than 52 points. Effect: the meat of the lobster is delicious and can nurture spiritual power. Collectible: tentacles with 100 tentacles that can be made into whips. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. He hurried to attach a layer of spiritual energy to himself and the purple bamboo in his hand. "Get the hell down there. The one on top, put down your spiritual energy." "Oh, no, put down the fish." Han Fei couldn't have looked more awful. The tentacle lobster on top was holding a half-meter-long blade fish that had already eaten quite a few pieces of meat. Sensing Han Fei's threat, the tentacle lobster was infuriated and swung its tentacles at him. Smack! The tentacles slapped the boat like whips, causing a crisp crack. Han Fei jumped away, and the purple bamboo hurried to sweep the other tentacle. "Damn it! You're too much. You're a robber." Han Fei felt that the purple bamboo was circled by the tentacles, and the tentacle lobster on top was about to lash at him too. Spiritual energy surged on the purple bamboo. Han Fei broke free from the tentacles and took out a blade fish dagger. When the tentacle lobster whipped at him, Han Fei swept away the tentacle lobster with his rod and cut the blade fish dagger on the tentacle lobster of the tentacle lobster. Yeah, half of the tentacle lobster fell off, and Han Fei took the opportunity to jump onto the tentacle lobster's back. Bam! 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 Not giving the tentacle lobster a chance to wave its tentacles again, Han Fei smashed the tentacle lobster's head 3 times in a row. Yeah, as fast as lightning, Han Fei rolled off the deck, and a tentacle lobster whipped at him brutally. Hiss! Han Fei felt a searing pain on his back. The wound that extended from his shoulder blade to his waist almost knocked him out. Total annihilation. Han Fei waved the purple bamboo and smashed it at the tentacle lobster and its head. Bam! One of the tentacle lobster's eyes was blown up, and half of its tentacle fell off. The tentacles writhed in pain, but this also gave Han Fei an opportunity. He turned to the back of the tentacle lobster, jumped up and hit it with his rod, shaking the hull of the ship. "Eat my fish! Eat my fish!" Seeing another tentacle lobster coming at him, Han Fei immediately drew out the remaining 4 knives on his body and shot them at the tentacle lobster. No matter how fierce a tentacle lobster's tentacle was, it was afraid of knives. Very soon, the tentacle lobster's other tentacle was cut off. It struggled to jump into the sea, but would Han Fei give it a chance? He jumped up and smashed the tentacle lobster's head 3 times. Chapter 24. Han Fei felt that his back was itchy. When he touched it, he found, to his surprise, that the wound was already scabbing. Huh? That's not right. I was whipped just now. Why is the wound so small? Han Fei touched his back, only to find that the wound was gone. Hiss! The first thing that came to Han Fei's mind was the purple bamboo fruit, then the snake gallbladder. One of the 2 must still be in effect. Could it be that this recovery ability was continuous? After the incident with the tentacle lobster, Han Fei stopped fishing. He absorbed the remaining half of the blade fish first and then the little tentacle lobster whose head was blown to pieces. To Han Fei's surprise, even the little tentacle lobster provided 36 points of spiritual energy, which was almost as much as a bowl of swallowed spirit soup. It's true that the higher the level of the item, the more spiritual energy it contains. However, Han Fei realized that it was still a loss. The tentacle lobster was much more difficult to deal with than the blade fish. He had to cover his body with a spiritual energy protective cover, which was a huge cost. Not to mention the spiritual energy that he would consume in battles. Han Fei's face was gloomy. Han Fei's face was gloomy. It would be great if he could stay in school every day. It would be even better if he could fight in school every day. It's a shame that I don't even know if I can go back. I'd better train myself first. The moon was in the sky. The view on the ocean at night was still beautiful, but the tranquility of the ocean was rather weird. Han Fei dug out the lobster meat and hung it on the boat as food. Han Fei sat cross-legged on the deck and began to train himself. The moment he activated the technique, Han Fei sensed that a tremendous wave of spiritual energy entered his body. Of course, the calabash absorbed most of it. Even so, it was still much stronger than when he was at home. Huh. This again. It seems that I can get twice the result with half the effort by training with the moon. Han Fei looked weird. He felt that he had discovered a great secret. Back on the floating island, although the effect of void fishing was dozens of times greater than that of soul fishing, he did not feel that it was much better. But on the ocean, with the help of the moonlight, the effect was multiple times greater than on the floating island. Earlier, he was still a level 2 fisher and didn't notice the gap. But now that the spiritual energy was pouring into his body, the effect was dozens of times better than that of soul fishing. As expected of the first universal cultivation technique. With this level of cultivation intensity, wouldn't one day of cultivation be equivalent to several months of cultivation for others? Just like last time, when Han Fei began to cultivate on the surface of the sea, the water gradually began to fluctuate. From time to time, a little white fish jumped up, and from time to time, a big yellow fish jumped up. Perhaps the spiritual energy that Han Fei attracted was strong but not strong enough, so although the surrounding fish were attracted over, there was no big riot, but small movements kept happening. Pa! A little white fish jumped onto the boat and slapped the deck in front of Han Fei. Voila! A big yellow croaker landed on Han Fei's side and hit the deck. Pa! Papa! Some little white fish jumped on his face, not just one, but 2 in a row. Han Fei immediately stopped his cultivation angrily. Can't you just stay in the water? Why do you have to jump out of the sea and hit my face? Do you think my face is easy to hit? Han Fei kicked the 5 fish on the boat into the fish cabin one by one, but the moment the spiritual energy stopped, dozens of fish immediately began to jump. Han Fei craned his head to the side of the boat, only to see green turtles moving and blade fish flashing on the surface of the sea not far away. After a few seconds, the whole surface of the sea seemed to be rolling. Frightened by the scene, Han Fei hurried to sit cross-legged and resume his cultivation. As he expected, the scene gradually calmed down after the cultivation began. Han Fei finally realized that he was eating meat, and you were all drinking soup. But as time went on, Han Fei became more and more shocked. Am I cultivating or are you cultivating? Am I cultivating on the edge of death? More and more fish were around. Whenever Han Fei stopped, the sea would riot, and he dared not stop at all. Finally, the moon fell, and there seemed to be a white light in the distant sky, followed by the first ray of dawn of the day. Just like last time, Han Fei's body trembled, and his wrist was stinging. The calabash was so dazzling that it seemed to be on fire. In just 3 seconds, Han Fei's hand burst into flames. At this time, Han Fei had no choice but to stop. His whole hand was on fire. This time, Han Fei was smarter. He simply jumped into the fish cabin and closed the lid. As he expected, in the next moment, the sea boiled, and a spectacular scene appeared. Hundreds of fish of various colors were slapping the surface of the sea and jumping on the surface of the sea. Blade fish, green turtles, tentacle lobsters, snakebelts, yellow croakers. There was even a meat turtle, except that the meat turtle couldn't jump onto the boat. The surface of the sea was dyed red by blood. Many big fish were jumping crazily, and cracking noises were echoing non-stop on the deck. Perhaps because some of the green turtles were too hard, the hull was shaking, and the hull was creaking from time to time. Han Fei even suspected that the boat would fall apart. Han Fei was willing to bet that he would be attacked by the fish from all directions if he went out at this moment. Bam, bam, very soon, there was the sound of knives being stabbed into the deck, stones hitting the hull, and wriggling noises. It wasn't until a dozen minutes later that the noises gradually died down. At this moment, Han Fei craned his neck and opened the cabin door, only to see that the whole deck was piled up like a hill with broken bodies. Some of the fish were struggling, and some of the blade fish were panting without knives. Han Fei said, "The ocean is better. How much spiritual energy does this boat contain?" Han Fei looked at the fish on the boat with a smile. He didn't care whether they were fish or broken pieces. They were all spiritual energy in his eyes. Didn't the demon purification pot require 2,000 points of spiritual energy? Didn't Forge the Universe cost 10,000 points? Wouldn't it be easy to stay on the sea for half a month? Thinking so, Han Fei still checked all the fish cabins carefully. He didn't find any snake balls, but he did find a black ball. The black ball was rolling around in a fish cabin. Name a ball fish, level at 10, quality regular, spiritual energy greater than 290 points. Effect, the heart of the ball fish is as sweet as honey. Long-term consumption can increase one's recovery ability. Collectible, a fishbone, which can be used as a hidden weapon. Shoot, 290 points of spiritual energy is so high. In his memory, the ball fish was a special fish in the level 1 fishery. It was very stupid and easy to be hooked. However, it was not easy to catch it after it was hooked because it could spurt thorns. On the ball fish's body, 108 black thorns were hidden under its skin. When it was in danger, the thorns would fly all over the sky. As long as the ball fish escaped, new thorns would grow on its body in a couple of days. Therefore, few creatures dared to offend this fish. Even human beings were reluctant to catch it, because they would be easily turned into hedgehogs. More importantly, this fish did not have any meat. The only advantage was that its heart was rich in spiritual energy and had a strong regenerative ability. Han Fei secretly gasped. Have I arrived at the level 1 fishery? Han Fei thought for a moment and decided not to deal with the ball fish, which was rather difficult. He closed the cover of the fish cabin and began to absorb the broken limbs crazily. Half an hour later, except for the fish cabins where he threw the yellow fish and the ball fish, all the fish cabins were empty. The substrate was cleaned by Han Fei, and his spiritual energy had increased to 2,584 points. It was a great harvest. Han Fei pondered for a moment and decided to kill the ball fish first. Then, he could try refining. He now had a total of 5 swords, and he even had the purple bamboo in his hands. He was truly rich and overbearing. Han Fei kicked the cover and stepped back in a hurry. In the next moment, 3 black thorns were shot to the sky. Damn it! So brutal. Han Fei extended his fishing rod and stirred the water. Then, he heard continuous shooting, and several black thorns were shot to the sky from the fish cabin. Han Fei said, "Hey! I'm a fish in a barrel. What can you do to me?" Han Fei stirred for a long time. When the sound of the thorns could no longer be heard, he grew bold and stirred again. After 5 minutes of stirring, a few more thorns were produced. There are no more, right? A few minutes later, Han Fei fished out a black ball. The eyes of the ball fish were white, and the ball was soft and slippery. Without hesitation, Han Fei stabbed the knife into the ball fish, which seemed to be leaking. A few seconds later, a piece of skin appeared before his eyes. Huh! This thing is not bad to make a bag. Han Fei cut off the ball fish's heart. It was white and a bit hard. Was this the thing that was worth 290 points of spiritual energy? As soon as the heart entered his hand, he felt a slight coolness. He could feel spiritual energy flowing out of it. Naturally, Han Fei didn't waste it. He opened his mouth and threw it into his mouth. It was better to eat it himself than to let the demon purification pot absorb it. As he expected, Han Fei felt that his spiritual energy was much higher after he ate it. He turned around and found that it was 2,856 points. Although he knew the result, Han Fei was still shocked that his spiritual energy was so high. But shouldn't it be doubled if it was taken orally? Why was there only 290 points of spiritual energy? Was it because the thorns were gone? That must be it. Han Fei did not know that the heart of a ball fish was worth 3 mid-quality pearls on the market. If he did, he probably wouldn't have eaten it even if he cried. Chapter 25. After he cleaned up the last fish cabin, Han Fei's spiritual energy finally exceeded 3,000 points. The 3,241 points were enough for him to make 3 more waves at the bottom of the sea. Of course, he wasn't so lucky every time. The sea dragons, the cunning ghost blade clams, and the sea anemones were all horrifying. On the bow, Han Fei studied the demon purification pot with the broken controller. Looking at the green pot the size of an apple in his palm, Han Fei thought of something. Activate. As Han Fei thought of something, 2,000 points of spiritual energy disappeared, and a huge wave of spiritual energy surged into the pot. Han Fei felt that there was a hazy mist in his head. The moment the mist exploded, Han Fei had an unprecedented epiphany. In the void, there seemed to be a burning furnace. Han Fei was stunned. He felt that as long as he was willing, he could store anything into the calabash and then perform some kind of magical synthesis. At the same time, an idea popped up in Han Fei's head. Heaven and earth furnace, with heaven and earth as the furnace and spiritual energy as the fire, everything can be made into a weapon. When this sentence appeared in Han Fei's mind, he immediately swallowed. Using heaven and earth as a furnace? That sounded rather impressive. But when he remembered the introduction of the void fishing art, he was reassured. That's right. I've traveled through time. What can't I accept? Han Fei glanced at the purple bamboo, the blade fish dagger, the fine iron fishing rod, and the ragged clothes he was wearing. Thinking that he had 5 blade fish daggers anyway, he immediately stored one of them into the heaven and earth furnace. The moment the blade fish dagger disappeared, he seemed to see a misty space in the pot, where a knife floated quietly. Smelt. The fire in the furnace instantly rose, and in less than a breath's time, a palm-sized knife floated out. So fast. Han Fei opened his eyes, only to see a knife floating in front of him and falling into his hand. Hiss, Han Fei was slightly dumbfounded. It's so small. My half-meter-long knife has become a little flying knife after being refined? Han Fei picked up the knife. For some reason, he felt that the knife was very suitable for him. However, the first thing Han Fei wanted to prove was how powerful this palm-sized laughing dao was. He picked up the small knife and slashed at the other knife. As a result, his eyes immediately widened. The supposedly tough knife actually had a chip on it. So powerful. Han Fei looked at the purple bamboo on the side and thought to himself, it shouldn't be a big deal if I cut it, right? Ding, he tapped it lightly and it made a crisp sound. Han Fei examined it carefully. The purple bamboo was fine, not even a scratch, and so was the knife. Han Fei was relieved. It seemed that the grade of the purple bamboo was very high. But when he looked at the demon purification pot again, he was dumbfounded. Hiss, only 1053 points left. The consumption of spiritual energy is 188 points. Han Fei hesitated. Although the effect was gratifying, the consumption was equally huge. This was only the smelting of a saber. What if it was a purple bamboo? He hardened his heart and stored the purple bamboo into the heaven and earth smelt. Then, he hardened his heart and threw in the remaining knives. He needed a weapon anyway, and Xiaoyu's bamboo stick made him envious. Han Fei took a deep breath. Anyway, he still had the yellow fish in the fish cabin and the ball fish in the fish cabin that he hadn't absorbed yet. If he didn't have enough spiritual energy, he could absorb a few hundred points. Han Fei thought, time to refine. Let's see what I can make out of it. Han Fei wondered if he could refine a Rui golden cudgel. After a few seconds, the calabash glowed, and a purple-red stick floated out. Han Fei's first feeling was that his body suddenly became weak, but to his surprise, it was not so strong that he wanted to absorb spiritual energy, so Han Fei was relieved. After taking a closer look at the purple-red stick, Han Fei was dumbfounded again. Isn't this the Rui golden cudgel? The difference was that the two ends of the Rui golden cudgel were golden hoops and the middle was black iron. The two ends of the Rui golden cudgel were silver and the middle was purple-red. Han Fei immediately gasped. So, what did the refined thing look like? Was it based on his imagination? Then, the two ends should be the material of the knife, and the middle should be the purple bamboo? Purple bamboo rod, mortal level, mid-quality. Note, it's made of 280 years old mortal level purple bamboo and infused with blade fish's gung metal knife chi. It can emit sharp knife chi. Mortal level, mid-quality. Weapons are also divided into levels. Yes, since cultivation is divided into levels, weapons should also be divided into levels. But isn't the purple bamboo an ultra-quality treasure? How come it has become a mortal level, and a mid-quality one at that? Han Fei looked at it carefully and even weighed it in his hand. Wow, it must be 180 kilograms. If it hit a person, it would be terrible. When Han Fei held the rod in one hand, he felt that it was the weapon he had used for many years. He waved it slightly. Although it was a little heavy, it was very comfortable. Delighted, Han Fei immediately brandished the sweeping stick. As it swung, it was as if a tiger was stirred up, and with the injection of spiritual energy, it was actually able to produce light and shadow. The sweeping stick was all about hacking, sweeping, and stabbing. At that moment, the purple bamboo stick was like a part of Han Fei's body. It was extremely flexible in his hands. His limbs and body could instantly control and react to the stick's position. After an hour, Han Fei felt that he was more and more comfortable with the sweeping stick. He had grasped the mysteries of the sweeping stick. If He Xiaoyu were here, her mouth would have been wide open, because Han Fei's sweeping stick had reached the lesser mastery level at this moment. Awesome, Han Fei stopped and shouted, before he fell to the ground. He felt that the world was swirling, and his stomach seemed to be vomiting. He looked at the demon purification pot and smiled bitterly. He had used up all his spiritual energy in the sweeping stick technique. Owner Han Fei, level of 5. Intermediate Fisher, Spiritual Energy a 0, 159, Spiritual Heritage Level 1, High Quality Weapon Purple Bamboo Rod Main Art Avoid Fishing, Chapter 1, Hook Kiss, Mortal Level, Divine Quality. The moment he saw the number 0, Han Fei scrambled into the cabin that was filled with yellow croakers. He picked up a yellow croaker and didn't let go. A moment later, a fish cabin was emptied, and his spiritual energy finally returned to 144 points. Yes, a whole cabin of yellow fish only provided 144 points of spiritual energy. Han Fei wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. He had risked his life to get less than 3,000 points of spiritual energy, which he had risked his life twice. However, he spent all his spiritual energy in no more than 2 minutes. He seemed to have seen a gigantic pit. Refining alone had already exhausted him. What was Forge the Universe, which cost 10,000 points of spiritual energy to activate? For some reason, Han Fei had a feeling that it would be a headache for him to acquire spiritual energy every day in the future. Others spent their spiritual energy on fishing and spending a few points. At the very least, they spent a few dozen points on fighting, which was nothing more than dozens of points. He, on the other hand, was only a fisher, but he had already spent thousands of points of spiritual energy. How could he have fun? Holding the stick, Han Fei sighed and smashed it into a corner, hoping to vent his frustration. But in a moment of carelessness, the purple bamboo stick hit the controller of the boat, which was equivalent to the engine. Then, a wooden cover was smashed by himself. Han Fei thought that he was screwed. The boat was already ragged. Now that he had smashed it, would the island ask him to pay for it? Huh? When Han Fei was wondering if he should pay for it, he saw an iron lump on the controller that seemed to be broken. It was a cut by a knife, not by his stick at all. Han Fei squatted down and observed it for a long time. Then, his face turned cold. Is it man-made? Who wants to kill me? The first person that came to his mind was Hu Kun, but then he shook his head. Hu Kun didn't like him, but how could such a young boy be capable of that? Besides, he didn't know when he would leave the island. Even if he did, could he have broken the island's boat? Chapter 26. He drifted for another day. Han Fei used up the remaining half of the box of bait and caught 9 yellow fish, 3 green turtles, and 1 blade fish. No one would believe such a fishing success rate in the outside world. There were only 40 bait in a box. It was normal for a normal person to catch 5 fish with 40 bait. The better ones could only catch 7 or 8, which meant that they were of a higher level. It was unbelievable that Han Fei caught 13 fish with half a box of bait, including a blade fish. As a matter of fact, Han Fei only wasted the bait on the blade fish 4 times and the green turtles 3 times. When he caught the yellow fish, it was impossible for them to run away. Another night passed. Han Fei had run out of bait and couldn't fish anymore. He could only cultivate. As soon as he cultivated, the situation was exactly the same as the previous 2 times. Fish surrounded him, and some of them jumped onto the boat on their own. At dawn, Han Fei absorbed a stream of intense spiritual energy again, and then a riot occurred. So, he had another boat full of fish the next morning, except that there were no special fish this time. Soon, after leaving a warehouse of fish as tax, Han Fei's spiritual energy value rose to 1,200 points again. Han Fei didn't dare to spend too much this time. Although he had 3 more knives, he didn't dare to fuse and refine them, or he would be penniless again. It was the 3rd day after Han Fei drifted on the ocean. There was still nobody around. God knew where he had drifted to. On the 4th day, after the first 3 fish tides, Han Fei's boat was already very ragged. 3 or 4 pieces of wood on the deck were broken, and one of the fish cabins was even smashed by a big green turtle. There were 2 big holes on the side of the boat too. At this moment, Han Fei was scooping water out because there was a hole on the side of the boat. God knows what fish poked it. Han Fei knew that this fishing boat couldn't survive the 5th fish tide. If there was another one, the boat would probably be scrapped. Even at this moment, the boat was shaking as if it could fall apart at any moment. On the afternoon of the 5th day, Han Fei was practicing rod techniques on the boat. After a few days, he had become very proficient in rod techniques. After 3 days, Han Fei's rod techniques had improved again and were on the verge of great success. At the same time, Han Fei found that the improvement of rod techniques actually required spiritual energy. However, as the saying went, Han Fei had more than 2,000 points of spiritual energy now, so he didn't care at all. At this moment, Han Fei was eating raw fish. He tilted his head and suddenly noticed that there seemed to be the shadows of several ships in the distance. Immediately, he didn't care about the fish anymore. He picked up the stick and shouted, "Hey! Hey! Brother! Miss! Uncle! Help!" Han Fei waved the rod and roared at the top of his lungs, wishing he could make a dolphin sound. "Third young master, there seems to be someone over there." Wang Baiyu nodded. "I saw it. Interesting. There's actually someone fishing 800 miles away. Let's go and take a look." Seeing someone coming, Han Fei was excited. Finally, he met someone. In this vast sea, it was really not easy to meet someone in an ordinary fishery with a range of thousands of kilometers. After the boat approached, Han Fei and Wang Baiyu looked at each other. "It's you. It's you." Wang Baiyu was stunned. Wasn't this the boy he met on the roadside a few days ago? At that time, because no one dared to speak, only this brat spoke, so he gave him a second glance. Han Fei was also very surprised. The third young master of the Wang family from the Heavenly Water Village. He even brought 5 fishing boats with him when he went fishing. The descendants of big families were really different. They even needed so many people to accompany the prince to study. Wang Baiyu narrowed his eyes. He saw the fishing boat under Han Fei's feet. Was it still a fishing boat? It was almost a ghost ship. It was so ragged, but it had not sunk yet. Wang Baiyu said, "Brother, you're quite good at running. You dare to come to a fishery 800 miles away alone?" Han Fei asked, "Huh? Did I fly so far?" Wang Baiyu was slightly surprised. "Huh? You don't know?" Han Fei smiled helplessly. "I'm sorry. The fishing boat in the sky malfunctioned and flew to this place automatically. I've been floating on the sea for 5 days." "How many days?" Wang Baiyu's subordinates were all stunned. Even Wang Baiyu was surprised. A person had been floating on the sea for 5 days? Not dead yet? There was a rule in the Heavenly Water Village that no one could stay on the sea for 7 days. In fact, almost no one could stay on the sea for 5 days. There were only 1 or 2 people who could stay on the sea every year. However, Wang Baiyu immediately felt that something was wrong. "Did you say that the fishing boat malfunctioned?" "That's impossible. The fishing boat is powered by a natural floating stone. As long as the stone is there, the fishing boat will not malfunction." Before he finished, Wang Baiyu saw that Han Fei was holding a stone. Han Fei asked, "Is this it?" Wang Baiyu's eyes widened. "Yes. But your floating stone, is it broken?" "Huh?" "It was completely cut in half, causing the power conduction to be interrupted." "You've been set up," Wang Baiyu said resolutely, as if he didn't need to think at all. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to understand, Wang Baiyu added, "Those who can damage the floating stone are at least peak-level fishers, and they need to destroy it with mortal weapons. Of course, it will be easier if they are fishing masters. However, fishing masters generally won't do such boring things." Han Fei's heart sank. At least peak-level fishers. When did he offend such an expert? Was it because he was too arrogant at school that he beat up the younger ones and the older ones came to avenge him? Suddenly, Han Fei had an idea. Could it be the tigers? When Li Hu left that day, he glared at him. Han Fei said, "Brother Wang, I'm glad that you came. Otherwise, I would have died in the sea." Wang Baiyu was very interested in Han Fei and smiled warmly. "How did you survive on the sea for 5 days in a row?" As he said, Wang Baiyu glanced at Han Fei's fishing boat again. It was a miracle that a pile of rotten wood could survive until now. Han Fei heaved a long sigh. "It's a long story. The sea is really scary. In 5 days, I experienced a small fish tide and the hull was almost broken. Fortunately, I hid in the fish cabin, or I would have been doomed." A small fish tide. The few people behind Wang Baiyu were stunned. They had heard about a small fish tide a while ago, and now it was happening again. Was there a fish tide crisis in the general fishery? Of course, Han Fei wouldn't tell them that it was all his doing. Wang Baiyu, however, observed Han Fei and thought to himself that a man who had a blade fish dagger and a fine iron fishing rod couldn't be too weak. Also, he had never seen the rod in Han Fei's hand before. It didn't look ordinary. Wang Baiyu said, "Brother Han, the rod in your hand is a bit strange." Han Fei nodded. "Oh, that. My brother gave it to me. It's only slightly better than an iron rod. It's not worth your attention at all." Naturally, Wang Baiyu didn't believe Han Fei either. However, he didn't want to kill and loot, which would be beneath his dignity. He, however, looked at Han Fei's fishing boat curiously. "Huh? Brother Han, you still have a boat full of fish?" Han Fei said calmly. "They jumped onto the boat during the small fish tide. But my fishing boat is so broken that it's only enough to compensate for the damage." Wang Baiyu shook his head. Your fishing boat was damaged. Someone will investigate it. You don't even have to pay the fish tax. However, do you have any rare fish species? Han Fei asked, do you want rare fish species, Brother Wang? Wang Baiyu said, to be honest, I went to see if there were any rare or mysterious fish species in the general fishery. Han Fei said, probably not. There was a ball fish during the small fish tide. Unfortunately, it was full of thorns and I couldn't do anything to it. In the end, it jumped back into the sea by itself. Wang Baiyu was obviously disappointed. Ball fish were not rare at all. The Wang family could have as many as they wanted. Han Fei said, Brother Wang, do you buy fish? I can't move my boat. Why don't I sell it to you cheaply? Wang Baiyu smiled calmly. What do you have? Han Fei said as if he was counting his family treasures, I have 7 knives, 6 green turtles, a small octopus, a jellyfish, 3 big conches. Some of them jumped onto the boat, the octopus climbed on its own, the jellyfish was caught by Han Fei by accident, and the conches were found in the stomachs of the fish. All of them were worth a lot of money. Wang Baiyu was shocked. You left 7 knives after a small fish tide. Han Fei said, yes, I had 2 tentacle lobsters, but they ran away. Right, I have a few tentacles left from the battle between the tentacle lobsters and the blade fish. Although Wang Baiyu was from a big family and could use any mid-quality pearls, Han Fei's items were worth 8 mid-quality pearls. It seemed few, but in fact, it was a lot. Not all the children of big families were rich, and they needed weapons to train their subordinates. Wang Baiyu immediately nodded. Okay, I'll take them. Of course, I didn't need the yellow croakers. If Brother Han needs them, I can ship them back for you. It's not a big deal. Han Fei said, thank you very much. Wang Baiyu was not a friend of Han Fei. He was just doing Han Fei a favor. He specially gave Han Fei a boat and asked one of his subordinates to send Han Fei back first. Han Fei left. Third young master, why do you care so much about such a nobody? Besides, we don't need to buy these things at all. Chapter 27. Wang Baiyu sent Han Fei away because he didn't want Han Fei to know the purpose of his trip. Naturally, Han Fei didn't want to know either. After all, it was a great thing that he was rescued. The only drawback was that he owed Han Fei a favor. At the port, the registrar was surprised when Han Fei showed up again. It's been 5 days and 5 nights. You're still alive? Han Fei said, Sister Qin, it's a long story. My boat was maliciously sabotaged. Han Fei told her the whole story, which made her frown. Her face was so cold that she couldn't see any emotion. The registrar said, I'll send someone to investigate it. If it's true, the Ministry of Supervision will give you an explanation. Just as Wang Baiyu said, the port did not collect fish tax, because Han Fei's story had yet to be verified. If it was false, Han Fei would be punished more than just fish tax. But if it was true, the port wouldn't let it go. Did someone deliberately sabotage a boat? Did he want to die? When Han Fei left the port, he had 7 mid-quality pearls with him, 6 of which were from Wang Baiyu. Han Fei's return did not attract anyone's attention. He did not go home or to school immediately. When Wang Baiyu said that a peak-level fisher was targeting him, Han Fei had thought of improving his strength. He was not in such a hurry, but no matter how strong a level 5 fisher was and how good his weapon was, he couldn't fight a peak-level fisher who was many levels higher than him, not to mention that the enemy might be a fishing master. Han Fei walked for an hour and reached the shop area of the port on the west side of the floating island. Then, he found a blacksmith shop. A brawny man with bare arms smiled. Bro, what would you like to buy? Han Fei asked, can you plate my rod with a layer of fine iron? Unlike He Xiaoyu, who had a fishing master father, Han Fei could swing his bamboo rod casually. Although Tanggu had soared to the sky, Tanggu was Tanggu after all. Ever since Tang Ge was taken away by Fang Zhe, Han Fei didn't think it would be easy to see him again. The blacksmith was anxious to see Han Fei's purple bamboo rod. He grabbed it and asked in fascination, "Where did you get this rod?" "My God, such extraordinary craftsmanship. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's a genius." Han Fei said warily, "My elders gave it to me, but I think it's too eye-catching." "Uncle, can you do it? You can't let me go to another house." The blacksmith replied, "Yes, of course I can. It's just a pity. Such a good stick, it was at least a mortal tool." "Is your elder a fishing master?" Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Higher." The blacksmith was depressed. "A peak-level fishing master?" Han Fei asked, "Uncle, are your thoughts limited to the fishing master level?" The blacksmith was shocked. "Village chief? That's impossible. How could village chief have a nephew like you?" "Uncle, do you really think there is only one great fishing master in the Heavenly Water Village?" Hiss, the blacksmith's face changed drastically. Yes, people often secretly said that the ancestor of the Wang family had long been a great fishing master. As for the leader of the tigers, it was said that he was also trying to be a great fishing master, but it had nothing to do with this kid, right? Were there other hidden masters in the Heavenly Water Village? Han Fei said, "Uncle, sometimes it's not good to know too much, understand?" Seeing that Han Fei was not embarrassed at all and even looked a bit arrogant, the blacksmith slightly nodded. At least Han Fei's temperament was extraordinary. The blacksmith said, "Okay, it'll be done soon." Han Fei waited for a quarter of an hour and was very satisfied with the black stick. Ignoring the blacksmith's weird look, he quickly disappeared into the crowd. But what Han Fei didn't know was that after he left, the blacksmith locked the door in a hurry and went out. In the crowd, Han Fei shuttled through many shops on the street and finally left the West City Port. Then he walked for a long time and returned to the East City Port. When he came to the East City that he was familiar with, Han Fei cursed. It was really expensive. It cost 18 low-quality pearls for just a layer of fine iron. Damn it. In Wang Jie's shop, the old shopkeeper was doing the accounts, when he saw a familiar little figure. He took a closer look, only to find that it was the master's disciple. "Mr. Guan, are you busy?" Mr. Guan said, "Oh. It's you. What do you want to buy now that you have money?" Han Fei asked secretly, "Master Guan, do you have anything better than the fish head body polishing fluid?" The old man was surprised. "Something better than the fish head body refining fluid? Do you want the refilling Dan? Do you have money to buy it?" Han Fei was surprised to hear this. "Master Guan, I've made some money this time." "How much is the refilling pill?" Master Guan asked. Old Guan said, "The spirit refilling pill can quickly replenish 300 points of spiritual energy. It's mainly sold to the peak fishers to save their lives." "Why do you need it?" "Also, it costs 2 mid-quality pearls each." "Can you afford it?" 300 points of spiritual energy cost 2 mid-quality pearls. Isn't that too expensive? However, Han Fei still asked, "Elder Guan, how fast can the spirit refill pill replenish spiritual energy?" "It's actually so expensive." Old Guan said with a smile, "It only takes 10 seconds for your spiritual energy to be replenished. 2 mid-quality pearls are very cheap." Han Fei smiled awkwardly. "Then, Elder Guan, do you have better things? For example, body tempering, meridian nurturing, spiritual energy enhancement, and so on." "Hey! You're quite bold. If those things are in the shop, they'll be kept for the master." "Huh." "However, there's a bottle of iron fish body polishing fluid, but the master doesn't need it anymore. I can sell it, but it won't be cheap. At least 6 mid-quality pearls, and that's because you're the master's student." Han Fei's eyes glittered. "That's it. Elder Guan, I'll take it." Han Fei took out 6 glittering mid-quality pearls from his pocket. Old Guan was shocked. "Well. You're just a student. Where did you get so much money? Han Fei replied without thinking, my brother gave it to me. My brother has a 7th grade spiritual heritage and was recruited by the angel as a disciple. He gave me almost 10 mid-quality pearls. Ha! Tang Gu is your brother? Han Fei asked, Elder Guan, do you know my brother? Old Guan said, of course. Everybody in the Heavenly Water Village knows Tang Gu. He's an unparalleled heavenly talent with a 7th grade spiritual heritage. Even the town can't accommodate him. TSK. Wait, if you're his brother, why don't you just ask him for it? Why did you come to the shop to buy it? Han Fei pretended to smile bitterly. I wouldn't buy it if I could see him right now. He's with Angel Fang Zhe and doesn't have time to come back. However, the fishing trial is drawing near. I can't just wait. Old Guan nodded. That's true. Since you're Tang Ji's brother, I can give you a 10% discount on this bottle of iron fish body polishing fluid. Han Fei said, okay. Thank you very much, Elder Guan. Old Guan looked at Han Fei thoughtfully and said, I know you're eager to train, but you can't rush it. The iron fish body polishing fluid is too aggressive. It's a body polishing fluid for peak-level fishers. As for you, you can only use a little bit of it at a time. So, if you still have money, you'd better buy 2 more bottles of iron fish body polishing fluid. After you reach level 6, you can try a little bit of it. But remember, you can't make a breakthrough with it. It's a medicine for training, not a breakthrough. Han Fei said, got it. Thank you for your concern, Elder Guan. I'll definitely keep it in mind. Then I'll buy 2 more bottles of iron fish body polishing fluid. Han Fei felt like crying after he left the shop. Training was really expensive. He thought that he was rich a moment ago, but in the blink of an eye, he only had 42 low-quality pearls left. He couldn't even afford a knife. But since he didn't have much money, Han Fei went to the fish market and bought 2 conches, 10 clams, and a few sauces called fish sauce. He only had 6 low-quality pearls left. On the way, Han Fei mumbled to himself. If it weren't for celebrating Tang Ji's great opportunity, he wouldn't have bought something as expensive as conches. 2 of them cost him 24 low-quality pearls. His heart was bleeding. They're just conches. I'll make a fortune if I catch a few hundred of them. They're all over the seabed. They're not worth much. Chapter 28. When he approached, he saw that the gangsters were eating clams in his yard, and his face immediately darkened. Hey! Brother Gang, the boy is back. Pa! The fatty threw the clam in his hand to the ground. Brat, you finally know to come back. Do you know that your brother Gang was here yesterday? You're so dishonest, where's the protection fee? Han Fei shuddered in fury. I almost died a few times, and the first thing I saw after I came back was that you were eating my food. Han Fei grinned. 5 low-quality pearls for 1 clam. I'll let you go if you give it to me. Otherwise, I'll beat you until you spit it out. Fatty and his lackeys were stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter in the blink of an eye. Brother Gang, he's asking us for money. Brother Gang, the boy has become more arrogant than ever. He's blackmailing us. The fatty's face shivered and he grinned wickedly. Brat, is your brother Gang still asleep, or was your head hit by an iron-head fish? How dare you blackmail me? Thud, Han Fei was confident now. So what if he was faced with a level 7 fisher? He had even killed a sea serpent. Why would he be scared of him? Han Fei stabbed the purple bamboo rod on the ground. Do you know why the corals are so red? Huh? When Brother Gang and the rest of them were about to mock Han Fei, they saw that the purple bamboo rod was glowing with spiritual energy. Brother Gang's face slightly changed. Brat, you're really bold enough to attack us. Brothers, let's beat him up. I'm going to kill you. Han Fei jumped up with the purple bamboo rod and slashed. Do you really think I can't lift my rod? Before Brother Gang realized what was going on, one of his lackeys, who was a level 5 fisher, fell to the ground and cried while covering his shoulder, "Ah! My arm is broken. Brother Gang, my arm is broken." Brother Gang burst into fury. "Do you want to die?" Then, they all picked up their rods. How could so many of them be defeated by a kid? Clang, clang, clang. With 159 points of basic spiritual energy, he was comparable to a level 7 peak level fisher. With more than 3,000 points of spiritual energy, he could beat his opponent into a pulp. What was there to be afraid of? "I'll hack this fatty to death." Bang! One of the gangsters covered his whole body with a spiritual energy protective cover, trying to take Han Fei's rod head-on. However, with a "kacha" sound, this person directly lay on the ground, vomiting blood. For a moment, Brother Gang was alarmed. "Not good, this kid is at the peak of level 6. Let me do it." The fatty also slashed at Han Fei with his iron rod. Out of Han Fei's expectation, Han Fei felt that his arm was numb after the collision. His face slightly changed. A level 7 fisher. Brother Gang also stared blankly. "What great strength, but you simply don't understand the power of a level 7 powerhouse, 10-direction shining spirit stick." Suddenly, Han Fei saw that there seemed to be a snake slithering around the fat man's body. The next moment, the fat man's combat power suddenly increased, and the speed of his attack was more than twice as fast as before. Han Fei was shocked. How is this possible? How could a fatty be so fast? Clang, clang, clang. Bam! Han Fei, who had been suppressing his opponent, was forced to retreat. Although he felt that his strength was no weaker than the fatty's, he couldn't withstand the fatty's 6 consecutive strikes. Cough! Han Fei's arm was numb, and blood flowed out of his mouth. Brother Gang sneered. "A level 7 expert can steal the power of demonic fish. Do you really think that I've lived my life for nothing? Boy, kneel before me and offer all your belongings as an apology." "Forget it. You don't have any belongings anyway. Give this house to me, and I'll let you go." Han Fei took a deep breath. His recovery ability was still there, although it was much weaker than at the beginning. Han Fei grinned. "Is that all a level 7 expert can do? Then how weak are you?" Ah! Surging spiritual energy burst out of Han Fei's body, and he and his rod were glowing. He jumped up and slashed down again. Clang! Brother Gang said, "Boy, you're asking for death. How precious is spiritual energy?" As a level 6 fisher, a spiritual energy protective cover consumes 1/3 of your spiritual energy. How many more strikes can you make? 3 or 5? Han Fei said, "You talk too much." Clang, 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 the weapons clashed. Han Fei smashed 6 times in a row crazily. He was hit once during the fight, and his chest hurt. But the fatty was panting too. Just now, the 6 strikes only slightly wounded Han Fei, but the boy was crazy and hit him 5 or 6 more times. How much spiritual energy did the boy have? Wasn't the boy's spiritual energy comparable to his own? However, Han Fei wasn't done yet. He waved his arms, and spiritual energy spurted out and disappeared in the air. Dum, 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 pooh! The weapons collided like thunder. Brother Gang vomited a mouthful of blood, and his iron rod flew out of his hand. His eyes were full of disbelief. How was it possible? How many strikes had he made? 10. 20. More importantly, this guy had a spiritual energy protective cover. 200 points of spiritual energy was not enough to beat him. Bam! Han Fei dispersed his spiritual energy and whipped the fatty with his rod. The rest of the gangsters were stunned. Brother Gang was defeated. Han Fei squatted before Brother Gang with the rod and asked with a smile, "Do you still want protection fees?" Brother Gang had a cold sweat. "It's a misunderstanding, bro. It's all a misunderstanding." Bam, 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 Han Fei hit him 3 times in a row, and Brother Gang fell to the ground. Is it a misunderstanding? Are you sure it's a misunderstanding? Brother Gang grimaced in pain, but he dared not talk back. Bro, I'll pay for it, okay? I promise I won't bother you again. BAM, Han Fei asked, who are you, Brother Gang? Brother Gang said, Little Gang. You can call me Little Gang. BAM, Han Fei asked, Little Gang? What about Little Ming and Little Red? Brother Gang's face trembled. Why are you still beating me? I'll be crippled if you beat me again. Brother Gang begged for mercy. Bro, please spare me. I can't give Little Red to you. I've been with Little Red for 7 years. Han Fei. BM, Han Fei said gloomily, give me all your money and your iron rod. Get lost. Brother Gang cried. What the hell is going on? Why did you pretend to be a weakling a few days ago if you're such a freak? Brother Gang said, Bro, I only have an iron rod. Here, don't point it at me. I'm scared. Han Fei said, who's your bro? Call me Brother Fei when you see me. You've wasted so much of my spiritual energy. Your iron rod is not enough for me. Get lost. Yes. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Han Fei was secretly shocked to see the agile fatty get up and run away. Was this the power of absorbing the demonic fish that Tango mentioned? If the fatty could store spiritual energy like him, it would be hard to tell who would be the winner. However, the weird power just now doubled his strength. If he hadn't stored enough spiritual energy, he would have been beaten to the ground. No, I've underestimated high-level fishers. They're called high-level for a reason. The fatty was defeated by me because he didn't have enough spiritual energy. What if he was a level 8 fisher? This was the second time that Han Fei felt that he was improving too slowly. Even a gangster could reach level 7. How many of such nobodies were there in this world of cultivation? He, on the other hand, was just a nobody at this moment. He was far from being unscrupulous. The moment Han Fei returned home, he saw a line of words on the table. It must have been left by Tang Gu. I may not be back soon. There's something in the old place. See you at the fishing trial. Han Fei silently crossed out this sentence, opened the door, and walked to the back of his house. There was a cliff at the back. There was barely enough space for a person to stand. There was an opening at the back of the house, where a chain was hanging. Han Fei carefully grabbed the chain and levitated down. About 7 or 8 meters down, there was an inconspicuous cave, hidden by the vegetation on the edge of the cliff, which was quite secluded. The cave had been there since the house was here. Every time Tang Gu got something good, he would hide it in the cave instead of leaving it at home, in case somebody wanted it. The cave was no more than 4 meters deep and 3 meters wide. There was only a small bed and a stone tank where dozens of clams were kept. On the bed, Han Fei saw a small package. As soon as he opened it, he gasped. 2 mid-quality pearls rolled out first. It wasn't much. It was probably all Tang Gu had. Apart from the 2 mid-quality pearls, there were 2 books, an iron box, and a bottle of pills. Han Fei immediately took a deep breath, not because of anything else, but because the 2 books were Swimming Art and Mystic Body Technique. At a glance, Han Fei knew why the 2 books were important. Most people in the Heavenly Water Village, including fishing masters, practiced rod arts. Even if there were books in the school, there wouldn't be many. No matter what the 2 books were, they couldn't be worse than the Universal Rod Art, Sweeping Stick. Huh? Spirit refilling pills. Chapter 29. How precious was the restorative spirit pill? In Wang Jie's shop, 1 pill was sold for 2 mid-quality pearls, but there was a whole bottle with more than 10 pills here. Although a spirit refilling pill was equivalent to 50 yellow croakers for him, it would take him a couple of days on the sea to earn 3,000 points of spiritual energy, which was easily achieved with 10 spirit refilling pills. When he opened the iron box, the cave was immediately filled with a strong fragrance. Han Fei's eyes widened. Is this the crimson sea fruit? Han Fei was not sure if it was a crimson sea fruit, but he was sure that it was not a purple bamboo fruit. However, they all had one thing in common, and that was that their fragrance could penetrate the skin and enter the body. Han Fei's heart was pounding. Another purple bamboo fruit? He deliberately stared at it, but unfortunately, there was no data. Could it be that this kind of treasure did not have a numerical value? Even so, Han Fei's heart was pounding. How powerful was the purple bamboo fruit? Even the demon purification pot had changed a little because of it. Even a little bit of it could absorb 1,000 points of spiritual energy. It was such a treasure. He didn't expect that Tang Gu would leave it to him. Han Fei quickly covered the iron box. This thing couldn't be eaten casually. When he ate it at the bottom of the sea, he didn't have the time to feel it, but after the fruit entered his stomach, the spiritual energy was so strong that his meridians were burning, which was not a good feeling. Suppressing the urge to swallow the spiritual fruit, Han Fei flipped through the 2 books first. Swimming art? Han Fei kept reading and felt weird. This was a secret book for teaching swimming, not a combat skill, because it only taught how to swim fast and freely. After reading the book, Han Fei frowned. According to the books, ordinary people could only hold their breath for 100 seconds at most in the sea, even fishing masters could only hold their breath for 500 seconds, and only great fishing masters could hold their breath for 1,000 seconds at the bottom of the sea. Then what was he? He had been in the sea for half an hour, right? If this was converted into breaths, it would be 1,000 breaths, right? Could it be that one breath in this world was very long? Han Fei didn't think too much about it. The swimming art was an underwater technique after all, so it was very useful. If he knew this movement technique before, he wouldn't have been in such a sorry state at the bottom of the sea. After reading it carefully, Han Fei suddenly had a weird feeling. How can you remember it so clearly? Han Fei quickly looked at the options of the demon purification pot. Existing combat skills, swimming technique, mortal level, high quality, remarks. It's a general swimming movement technique based on a variety of swimming movement techniques. Its quality is passable. It will consume 1,000 points of spiritual energy to deduce an ultimate combat skill. Derived art, roaming dragon art completion, 0/1000. Seeing this, Han Fei was ecstatic. Combat skills can also be deduced. Although the mortal high quality was not bad, how could the demon purification pot's deduction be bad? Although 1,000 points of spiritual energy was not a small amount, it was a life-saving method in the sea, and he had to learn it. Deduce. After a surge of spiritual energy, the swimming technique changed. Existing cultivation method, wandering dragon art, mortal level, divine quality. Note, using spiritual energy to imitate the fish dragon technique, one can enter the water like a fish dragon, its shadow hard to be seen. Sure enough, Han Fei frowned. As long as it was an art or a combat skill, it could actually be deduced to a higher level. Moreover, it was divine grade. But what exactly was divine grade? He Xiaoyu said that the level above high quality was ultra quality, and there was nothing above ultra quality, which was obviously wrong. It could only be said that for He Xiaoyu or her father, ultra quality was already the limit. They had no idea that there were levels above ultra quality. Forget it. I'll go to the sea next time. Well, I'd better wait until I reach the peak of level 6 before I practice this combat skill. Since he couldn't use the wandering dragon art right now, Han Fei naturally looked at the mystic body technique, which seemed to be a cultivation technique. It might be very useful. After reading it carefully, Han Fei did not read it at all, but the upgrade standard of the mystic body technique popped up in his head. Existing arts, mystic body technique, mortal level, high quality. Note, a technique to temper the acupoints all over the body with strong medicinal power or abundant spiritual energy, hardening them and sealing the leakage of spiritual energy. Finally, a mysterious body is formed. Shortcoming: the hardening of the acupoints will damage the foundation. Deduced art, incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing completion, 0/2200, hiss, Han Fei gasped. He was shocked to find that it required 2,200 points of spiritual energy to deduce this technique. But when he saw the explanation of the shortcoming in the system, he broke into a cold sweat. Damage the foundation? That would definitely block his way forward. Tengu certainly wouldn't harm him, but he might not know that it would be bad if he practiced this combat skill. Han Fei decided to remind him the next time he met him. Han Fei was so distressed that he didn't feel good at all. 2,200 points of spiritual energy. That's daylight robbery. Is it even better than void fishing? Forget it. With so much spiritual energy, the deduced thing can't be bad. Han Fei nodded. Deduce. After another surge of spiritual energy, the interface changed. Existing arts, incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing, incomplete, mortal level, divine quality. Note, the human body is like a funnel, with 108 unimportant acupoints and 36 fatal acupoints. You should practice the acupoints with a mysterious technique to seal the acupoints and absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Shortcoming: the subsequent arts can only be deduced with the corresponding body refining technique. Han Fei was overjoyed. I've made a fortune. It turned out that there were so many fatal acupoints in the human body. They were too fatal. If these fatal acupoints were repaired, he would be much stronger than ordinary people. At least he wouldn't have to worry about being killed by others or by big fish in the sea. Han Fei didn't know who created this incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing, but he knew it was amazing that it could seal the fatal acupoints in the body. The body would no longer have a funnel, and the speed of cultivation would be doubled. This person was simply a genius. Looking at his spiritual energy, he found that there were only 142 points left. Han Fei felt that it was too expensive. It cost him thousands of points of spiritual energy to deduce and upgrade a combat skill. What would he do if he had 8 or 10 combat skills in the future? But Han Fei shook his head. What am I thinking? I've already made a lot of money. I can't ask for more. He was in urgent need of body strengthening. Tengu was a timely help. Han Fei immediately began to study the incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing. The so-called 108 ways of body polishing consisted of 108 postures. Han Fei immediately stood at the entrance of the cave and made a strange pose. Just the first pose caused Han Fei's expression to change. He could feel his meridians being pulled painfully and his muscles were all tensed up. This was just the first pose. The second. The third. When Han Fei practiced the 8th posture, he was already breathless and couldn't move anymore. Wasn't body refining too difficult? Han Fei sat on the ground with sweat all over his head. Exactly at this moment, Han Fei heard a voice from above. Brother, this is the place. That brat lives here. Han Fei was alarmed. It was the voice of the fatty brother gang. Bim, the door was kicked open. Then, an indifferent voice asked, where is he? Brother Gang said, huh. That stinking brat was clearly here just now. Where could he have gone in such a short time? The indifferent voice said, Gang Z, did you say that the brat really defeated him as a peak level 6? Brother Gang said, Brother Dong, it's true. That kid is very strange. He seems to have inexhaustible spiritual energy. At the peak of level 6, 140 points of spiritual energy is the limit, but he smashed me dozens of times with sweeping stick, and he can even use a spiritual energy protective cover. His face is not red, and he is not out of breath. The man called Brother Dong was silent for a moment before he said, interesting. Gangzi, Leave some people here to keep a close eye on this young man. There must be something strange about this young man. He either has a treasure on him, or he has an opportunity. Whether or not we can seize this opportunity depends on you. Very soon, there was no reply from above, but Han Fei's face was gloomy. Was he too soft-hearted? The fatty didn't seem to have learned his lesson. Han Fei was not an idiot. He wouldn't go out and duel with the people above like an idiot. Not only was it a waste of spiritual energy, but the man called Brother Dong was at least a level 8 fisher, or the fatty wouldn't have been bowing to him like that. Fatty, you're very good. I'll remember you. Han Fei held back his fury. They didn't know that he was a level 5 fisher yet, or more people would have come. It was too horrifying for a level 5 fisher to defeat a level 7 fisher, especially when the fatty had absorbed the power of the demonic fish. Han Fei gritted his teeth and drank a bottle of fish head body polishing fluid. He had to speed up the incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing. Then, Han Fei felt that he was full of strength. The fish head body polishing fluid was taking effect. The next 6 hours were the most important. Han Fei began his second training. This time, although his muscles and veins were still aching from the stretching, Han Fei gritted his teeth and persisted because of the inexhaustible strength in his body. Han Fei was drenched in sweat when he finished the 36 movements. When he finished the 72 movements, Han Fei felt as if he had just been fished out of water. When he finished the 108 movements, Han Fei was refreshed. He felt that all his muscles were cramping, and he fell to the ground in pain. Damn it! My whole body is twitching. What kind of body tempering technique is this? Han Fei almost passed out, but he was very energetic after taking the fish head body polishing fluid, so he couldn't pass out. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that Han Fei's cramps gradually disappeared. Ouch! Han Fei lay on the ground, motionless, gasping for breath. This body tempering technique was too terrifying. But when Han Fei looked at the demon purification pot, he was shocked. Owner Han Fei, level 5, intermediate fisher, spiritual energy greater than 398, 167, spiritual heritage level 1, high quality, upgradable, weapon purple bamboo rod main art avoid fishing, chapter 1, hook kiss, mortal level, divine quality, hiss. I've only practiced it once, and my spiritual energy capacity has been increased by 8 points. This is too shocking. Chapter 30. During the day, Han Fei practiced the incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing. At night, Han Fei practiced the void fishing art and absorbed the spiritual energy from heaven and earth into his body. After only one day, Han Fei found that he could break through level 6 easily. He felt that there was a threshold that he could jump over easily. But Han Fei didn't skip it. He Xiaoyu said that every stage could be cultivated deeply. Some talented people could fight beyond their level because they had a good foundation. According to the void fishing art, it wouldn't be a problem for him to break through 10 levels in one day, but he only had a level 1 spiritual heritage. If he didn't have a solid foundation, his future development would be hindered. The next day, Han Fei ran out of the fish head body polishing fluid. He took a sip of the iron fish body polishing fluid and blushed. It was much more powerful than the fish head body polishing fluid. No wonder one bottle was worth 6 bottles of the fish head body polishing fluid. Han Fei felt that his body was about to explode. Han Fei immediately practiced the 108 postures. Once. Twice. 3 times. Han Fei didn't stop blushing until he practiced 3 times in a row. Han Fei looked at the demon purification pot. Owner Han Fei, level 5, intermediate fisher, spiritual energy greater than 506, 189, spiritual heritage level 1, high quality weapon purple bamboo rod main art avoid fishing, chapter 1, hook kiss, mortal level, divine quality, 189 points. Han Fei grinned. It was indeed a body polishing art that cost 2,200 points of spiritual energy. 3 days was more than 3 months for a normal person. Han Fei's lips curled up. He had a feeling that if he were to beat Brother Gang now, he could knock him down with only 3 strikes. After 3 days of cultivation, Han Fei not only increased the capacity of his spiritual energy, but also his body grew stronger after each cycle of 108 postures. Some impurities were even expelled from his body. Han Fei had a hunch that if he practiced longer, he might even be able to pry out the growth of his spiritual heritage and save the 1,000 points of upgrade fee. Of course, if he still had spiritual energy, he would have leveled up. Although the impurities were not as good as the last meridian cleansing, some of them were still expelled. After many times of expelling impurities, Han Fei's 12-year-old body didn't lose weight but became much stronger. After practicing the incomplete monograph on 108 ways of body polishing again, he found that he could no longer increase the upper limit of his spiritual energy. Suddenly, his face changed slightly. Not good, I can't suppress it anymore. Han Fei felt that his body had an involuntary desire for spiritual energy. He was very hungry, like a dry desert that needed to be moistened by rain. Han Fei immediately sat cross-legged, placed the spirit refilling pill in front of him, and activated the void fishing art. The sky gradually darkened. Not far from Han Fei's house, a fat man was walking over. Brother Gang, you are here. Brother Gang was carrying sea melon seeds in his hand. What, that kid hasn't come back yet? A kid shook his head. No. It was as if this kid had disappeared. Right, a girl who was a level 6 fisher came. She knocked on the door and left after finding nobody. Pa, Brother Gang slapped his lackey's head. Are you stupid? Why didn't you catch the girl? She must know him since she came to him. His lackey said pitifully, Brother Gang, it's not that we didn't want to catch her, but that we couldn't. The girl was holding a bamboo rod. Later, Ergu flirted with her on her way back, only to be beaten to the ground by 3 strikes. She's obviously not a simple girl. A bamboo rod? She beat Ergu to the ground with 3 strikes. Brother Gang's face slightly changed. She's so young and strong, and she has a bamboo rod. Does she have a fishing master parent? Suddenly, Brother Gang asked in confusion, Hey. Do you feel that the spiritual energy here is denser? His lackey asked, Hasn't it always been like this? Pa, Brother Gang slapped him on the head again. You're really stupid. Not only are you stupid, but you're also very weak. But the spiritual energy fluctuations aren't that big. Maybe it's because the night is coming and the spiritual energy between heaven and earth is beginning to fill up, so tonight it's a bit more concentrated. While Brother Gang and the others were chatting, Han Fei was eating jelly beans. Han Fei's face suddenly changed. The more than 500 points of spiritual energy that he had naturally accumulated over the past few days were consumed by the spiritual energy needed for the breakthrough in less than a minute. Just like that, endless spiritual energy entered his body from the outside world, and he had a spirit refilling pill in his mouth. The result greatly changed Han Fei's face. After a minute, his spiritual energy was used up again, and he was about to reach the bottom. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What's going on? Do I need so much spiritual energy to break through to level 6? Didn't they say that level 7 was the threshold? It was really easy to break through the barrier of level 6. Han Fei didn't even feel any hindrance. The only thing that he couldn't bear was the enormous amount of spiritual energy needed for the breakthrough. After chewing 3 spirit refilling pills in a row, Han Fei realized that they couldn't help him at all. Besides, it was a waste to use them on a breakthrough. They were life-saving pills in times of crisis. What should he do if he used them up now? Han Fei couldn't help but look at the iron box. Was he really going to eat them? Yes. After a moment's hesitation, Han Fei made up his mind. At this rate of consumption, even 10 spirit refilling pills might not be enough. As soon as the spiritual fruit was revealed, its fragrance spread out. Han Fei swallowed it, and his body trembled. The spiritual energy that the spiritual fruit turned into instantly entered his body, passed through his limbs, and ran through his meridians. The supply of spiritual energy kept up. Han Fei reached level 6 almost in 10 seconds, and the calabash on his wrist flickered as if it were breathing. As he expected, just like the first time, Han Fei felt that his body was hot and his meridians were extremely hot. His body temperature was shockingly high. Because he was not in water this time, he was sweating profusely. Fortunately, the demon purification pot was absorbing the spiritual energy of the spiritual fruit, or he would have been stuffed to death. But in any case, Han Fei could feel that his strength was rising. He could even feel that his bones were itching and his marrow was flowing. Inch by inch, he felt itchy all over his body. He had a guess that the fruit seemed to be improving his physique, but unfortunately, the itchy feeling only lasted for a short while. It seemed that the ability of the fruit was not enough. This process lasted for about 5 minutes, and a spirit fruit that others might not even see in their entire lives was digested by him. Han Fei didn't feel it was a pity at all. He murmured, level 6, and it seems to be a relatively high-leveled one. Han Fei immediately looked at the demon purification pot. Owner Han Fei, level 6, intermediate fisher, spiritual energy greater than 2308, 219, spiritual heritage level 2, low quality, upgradable, weapon a purple bamboo rod main art avoid fishing, chapter 1, hook kiss, mortal level, divine quality. Han Fei immediately gasped. What's wrong with me? His upper limit of spiritual energy had increased by 30 points. He was only level 6. Did level 8 fishers have this much spiritual energy? Or level 9 fishers? Han Fei suspected that the upper limit of his spiritual energy tolerance seemed to have reached a level that others couldn't understand. More importantly, his level 1, high-quality spiritual heritage had become level 2, low quality. It was not just a little leap, but a leap of a whole level. 2 spiritual fruits had increased his spiritual heritage by 1 level. Although it was only 1 minor level, it was still terrifying. Han Fei even felt that his spiritual heritage could continue to improve as long as he had enough such spiritual fruits. But when he checked the upgrade of his spiritual heritage, he found that the original 1,000 points of spiritual energy had become 10,000 points. Fuck. Are you kidding me? Why is it only 10,000? Han Fei was lost for words. But on second thought, it was from level 1 to level 2. Was it from level 2 to level 3 now? Han Fei stood up, his bones creaking. He felt his whole body brimming with strength. His small body had at least 1,000 pounds of strength. He felt that if he were to encounter that brother gang again, not to mention anything else, just one stick would be enough to knock him down. Who? Level 6 is already so powerful. What about level 7? Can a level 7 slap a guy like Brother Gang to death? Han Fei thought for a moment. Was Brother Gang not strong? Definitely not. How could a level 7 fisher who had absorbed the power of a demonic fish be weak? At least 3 days ago, Han Fei had barely defeated him with his spiritual energy. Han Fei cleaned up. There were no more spiritual fruits, but he still had 7 spirit refilling pills. The 2 manuals didn't seem to be of much use, but they were mortal level, high-quality combat skills after all. Han Fei left them here for now. But it was a pity that the demon purification pot didn't change much this time. The function of the demon purification pot, on the other hand, cost 5,000 points of spiritual energy instead of 10,000 points. It was a huge breakthrough. Han Fei concluded that such a fruit could contain almost 10,000 points of spiritual energy, which was truly terrifying. Not far away from Han Fei's house, Brother Gang craned his head and asked, "Do you smell anything?" "It smells nice." His lackey said, "Ah." "No, Brother Gang." "Pa," Brother Gang said, "you're too ignorant. You only know how to make fun of me. Stay here." Chapter 31. Brother Gang walked back while eating sea melon seeds, ready to go home and sleep. He mumbled, "Little brat, don't let me see you again, or your brother Gang will kill you." "Who are you going to kill?" Han Fei appeared. His face was covered with a black cloth. He felt that he had succeeded in his cultivation. Finally, he did not have to continue being a useless person anymore. He had turned into a genius. Brother Gang was quite shocked. He quickly turned around and looked at Han Fei as if he had seen a ghost. You. Where did you come from?" Brother Gang's hand trembled, and he hurriedly threw a firework-like signal into the sky. Then, he nervously held his iron rod. "Boy, I advise you to leave quickly, or my people will be here soon. Once the level 8 experts arrive, you won't have anywhere to run." Han Fei asked, "How can you recognize me in such a dark night?" Brother Gang wanted to roll his eyes. "Do you think I'm blind? You look like a kid, and you happen to be here. It would be weird if I didn't know who you are." Brother Gang took a deep breath. "It's not wise to fight me." Ouch! As soon as he said that, Brother Gang saw Han Fei jump up and swing the purple bamboo rod at him. He didn't have time to react at all. Brother Gang hurried to block it with his iron rod. Clang! With a loud bang, Brother Gang's fat figure was directly sent flying. Blood spurted from his mouth, both his hands were instantly fractured, and the fine iron rod was directly smashed and bent. "Ah! Young master, spare me." Brother Gang almost peed his pants. This guy was too horrifying. He was almost defeated a few days ago, but he was knocked down with only one attack without using the power of the demonic fish. At that moment, he felt that an adult iron-head fish had hit him. His arms were numb, and his internal organs were shaking. He felt that he was going to die if he was hit again. He couldn't care less at this moment of life and death. Brother Gang had to beg for mercy. Fights and murder were forbidden on the floating island. Han Fei did not intend to kill him. Instead, he pointed his purple bamboo rod at Brother Gang and said, "Give me all your money." Brother Gang was stunned. "You're still in the mood to rob me?" Brother Gang, ugh. "Young master, my arm is broken. I'll pay for it myself." Han Fei rummaged for a while and found a money bag with a dozen low-quality pearls in it. There was also a bag of sea melon seeds, which were not worth much and only cost a few sea coins per caddy. Han Fei said fiercely, "So poor. Don't let me see you again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you." Then he ran away. He had already seen someone running over from a distance. After a few dozen breaths, someone rushed over, and the closest one was Brother Gang's little brother. The lackey, "Brother Gang, what's wrong? Are you all right?" Brother Gang scolded, "His arm is broken, don't move, don't move." Ouch! Hurry and inform Brother Dong. Brother Gang had a lingering fear in his heart. "I'm never coming back to this damned place again." A 12-year-old brat was able to knock him over with a single strike of his rod? Could it be that he had reached the 7th rank? But even if it was at level 7, it was only at the same level as him. It didn't make sense for him to be so strong. About half an hour later, a black-clothed middle-aged man arrived. Brother Gang burst into tears when he saw the man. "Brother Dong, help me, Brother Dong. I feel that my arm is broken, and my internal injuries are very serious, Brother Dong." Li Dong was not happy to be woken up in the middle of the night, but he frowned when he saw Brother Gang's reaction. "What happened exactly?" "Brother Dong, it's the kid you told us to keep an eye on. That kid is too strange. I don't know where he came from, but he knocked me over with just a stick. Brother Gang, you have to stand up for me." Brother Gang's face was covered with tears and snot. Li Dong was slightly moved. Although he despised Li Gang, the guy was a level 7 fisher after all. However, the guy had bent his iron rod after one attack, which meant that he was at least a level 8 fisher. Also, he was not a regular level 8 fisher, or he couldn't have beaten the fatty like this. If the guy was so strong, wouldn't it be hard for him to take care of him? Li Dong asked, "Are you sure it's him?" Brother Gang said, "Absolutely. It must be him. Although he's masked, I can still recognize a 12-year-old boy." Li Dong frowned. A 12-year-old level 8 fisher. Was there such a person in the Heavenly Water Village? If there was, wouldn't the boy be a genius? Li Dong immediately summoned one of his subordinates. "Go and get Zhang Han, the person in charge of this area." A moment later, Zhang Han came, his clothes still untidy. Zhang Han was very annoyed. "I was sleeping soundly, but I was called here. If it weren't for the fact that you are from the tigers, I would have thrown you off the floating island in minutes." When Zhang Han saw Li Dong, he greeted him respectfully. "Brother Dong, why did you wake me up so late? What happened?" Then, Zhang Han looked at Brother Gang and said in surprise, "Hey! It's you. Gang, how did you get beaten up?" Brother Gang had been running amok in this area before, and with the support of the tigers, he never showed any respect to Zhang Han. Now that Zhang Han was obviously teasing him, he was pissed and too lazy to talk. Li Dong asked, "Who lives in that house?" "I heard that it's a 12-year-old boy. How strong is he? What's his background?" Seeing that Li Dong was referring to Han Fei's house, Zhang Han chuckled. "Brother Dong, look at that crappy house. What background can it have? There's only a good-for-nothing named Han Fei living there. He's only a level 2 fisher." Zhang Han secretly chuckled. It was true that the boy was a good-for-nothing, but his brother was awesome. His brother had been recruited by the angel as a disciple. Even I don't dare to pick a fight with him anymore, okay? Also, I heard that Han Fei died at sea a long time ago, so there was even less reason for him to come. Seeing Zhang Han's casual look, Li Dong couldn't help but snort. "Zhang Han, is the tiger's face worthless? Who are you kidding?" Zhang Han cupped his hands. "Of course not. I've always been in awe of the tigers. However, you'd better not mess with this family. The entire tigers can't afford to." Although Han Fei is a good-for-nothing, his brother is a disciple of the angel. "Do you understand? The angel?" Li Dong's face changed greatly. The angel was from the city. If he claimed that he could destroy the tigers with one hand, he wouldn't use two hands. Zhang Han was happy to see Li Dong's embarrassment, but he was still smiling. "Brother Dong, Han Fei can't hurt Gangzi at all, but Tang Gu, well, he's a level 7 fisher at the age of 12, and he's probably a level 8 one now. Gangzi should thank God that he's still alive. If they really made a move and Gangzi was killed with a stick, who would dare to find trouble with the angel?" Zhang Han thought he was quick-witted. This was definitely done by Tang Gu. Only Tang Gu had the ability to cripple the fat man with a stick. Li Dong took a deep breath and realized that he was in big trouble. He seemed to have gotten himself into big trouble. Everybody in the Heavenly Water Village knew Tang Ji's name. Pissing off Tang Gu was equivalent to pissing off the angel, which was basically asking for death. Brother Gang was shocked too. Tang Gu? Did Tang Gu live in this shabby place? This time, he really peed his pants. His whole body was trembling. It was over, it was over. He was definitely done for this time. Could it be that the masked man wasn't the brat from before, but his brother? But that's not right. I've seen this boy before. Overnight, the entire tigers were mobilized. Gangzi was hung at the gate of the headquarters of the tigers as an apology. Li Ju, the leader of the tigers, begged the angel and even went to the village leader's house. But the village leader refused without thinking. "You've pissed off the angel. What does it have to do with me?" During this period, the Wang family gloated. Many people thought that the tigers were doomed this time, including Li Ju himself. Even Li Ju himself thought so. He even asked his subordinates to protect Li Hu and take refuge at sea. But he couldn't leave. If he left, the tigers would definitely be destroyed if the angel came to punish him. But in fact, the angel Fang Zhe didn't know about it at all, and neither did Tang Gu. The protagonist of the story was squatting in front of a roadside stall at the school gate, eating shrimp dumplings and muttering that they tasted terrible. In the morning, the school gate gradually became lively, and more people set up stalls. Students were all coming to class. Ah! Han Fei. Suddenly, a very happy voice sounded. Chapter 32. Hey! He Xiaoyu, the shrimp dumplings in this restaurant are awful. Do you want to eat them? If you do, I'll give them to you. You're only giving it to me because it tastes bad. Amused, He Xiaoyu ran to Han Fei and pinched his ear. You're still in the mood to eat? Where the hell have you been? I thought you were dead. The teachers were all worried that if you died, Tang Gu would go crazy when he came back, and our school would be in trouble. Hey! Little girl, be quiet, or you won't be able to get married in the future. Who said I'm dead? I just went for a stroll on the sea. He Xiaoyu said, how can you be so casual? Do you know how many fishing boats the school sent to search for you? Even my dad looks sad every day. Han Fei thought to himself, the school is only looking for me because they are worried that Tang Gu will punish me. Otherwise, why would the school be so kind? Han Fei scoffed. Let go of me. Do you think I don't want to lose face? My fishing boat was broken and I drifted on the sea for 5 days and 5 nights. Why didn't I know that someone was looking for me? Forget it, if you don't want to eat, then don't eat. Let's talk after we enter the school, okay? He Xiaoyu said anxiously, how can the boat be broken? Come with me to find teacher. Before Han Fei finished the last shrimp dumpling, He Xiaoyu had already dragged him into the school. Along the way, some people avoided him like snakes and scorpions. Someone exclaimed, did Han Fei die at sea? What? Han Fei is not dead? That's not right. This guy disappeared for 7 to 8 days, why did he appear again? Sure enough, rumors can't be trusted. Han Fei must be in a relationship with He Xiaoyu. There must be something shameful. Pa! Blushing, He Xiaoyu stabbed the bamboo stick on the ground and berated, what are you talking about? If you say it again, I'll kill you. If He Xiaoyu was violent, she certainly was, or she wouldn't have been running around with a bamboo stick. However, this little girl was a little stupid. She would only be violent when she was angry. But so far, Han Fei was much more violent than He Xiaoyu. Han Fei asked, He Xiaoyu, are we going to class? He Xiaoyu said, what class? We're graduating soon. Let's go find the teachers and tell them that you're back. He Xiaoyu nagged as they walked. The fishing trial that was held once every 3 years was about to begin. All the teachers were busy guiding the students and telling them how to survive and succeed in the trial. Wang Jia was about to teach the students how to save themselves when He Xiaoyu came with Han Fei. Wang Jia was stunned. Han Fei, you're not dead. Master, I've returned safely. Pa! Wang Jia slapped Han Fei's head. You're full of tricks. Everybody thought that you died at sea. Do you know how many boats the school sent to look for you? Speechless, Han Fei rubbed his head. Master, someone tried to set me up. My boat was destroyed, and I wandered 800 kilometers away from the general fishery for 5 days and 5 nights. I was upset too. Wang Jia was taken aback and said seriously, huh? What happened? Although Wang Jia looked down on Han Fei before, Han Fei made a breakthrough at the last moment, so he was more lenient. After all, Han Fei was just a kid, and he couldn't blame him too much. But now, someone tried to set up his student. That was unacceptable. The students of the school could die in the ocean while fishing, but not being set up. After Han Fei finished, Wang Jia frowned. You're saying that a fisher above level 9, or even a fishing master, tried to set you up? Han Fei said, Master, the port has been involved in the investigation. He Xiaoyu was dumbfounded. A fishing master wanted to set you up. Was there a need to do that? He could have killed you with a slap. Suddenly, Wang Jie took 2 steps back and looked at Han Fei up and down. While Han Fei and He Xiaoyu looked at him in confusion, Wang Jie patted Han Fei's shoulder. Han Fei certainly knew what was going on. So, Wang Jie had seen through his strength. This was a test. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Master, why did you hit me? But Wang Jie ignored him and looked at Han Fei weirdly. When did you become a level 6 fisher? Wang Jie found it hard to understand. It was understandable that you could level up 1 level a month, or even if you were a genius, it was understandable that you could level up 1 level in half a month. But you've been a turtle for 4 years, and it only took you half a month to advance from level 2 to level 6. Was Tanggu really capable of that? All of a sudden, Wang Jie wondered if he should take Han Fei to do another spiritual heritage test. He didn't believe that a little guy with a spiritual heritage of level 1, high quality could be so talented. As if he knew what Wang Jie was thinking, Han Fei said in a hurry, Master, don't be so surprised. I ate a spiritual fruit that was given to me by my brother, and I instantly advanced from level 4 to level 6. Wang Jie and He Xiaoyu were both relieved. No wonder you leveled up so fast. Then, Wang Jie glared at Han Fei with fury. Spiritual fruit? You only leveled up 2 levels after eating a spiritual fruit. Your aptitude is truly poor. You're no different from a piece of garbage. That's a spiritual fruit. Wang Jie was speechless. When a man achieves the Tao, his chickens and dogs rise to the heavens. I haven't eaten a spirit fruit, but you ate it first. It was a pity that Han Fei's aptitude was too poor to absorb the power of the spiritual fruit. Wang Jie didn't want to talk to Han Fei anymore. His eyes were bloodshot with jealousy. He Xiaoyu, however, pulled Han Fei and asked enviously, Han Fei, is the spiritual fruit delicious? What does it feel like after eating it? Do you level up all of a sudden? Han Fei looked at He Xiaoyu pitifully. Even if there was a fishing master in your family, so what? You couldn't find a spiritual fruit anyway, could you? Han Fei said casually, it's actually not a big deal. It's gone the moment it reaches your mouth. Then, you'll feel hot all over your body, your veins will expand, and your spiritual energy will overflow out of your body. Train yourself during this period, and then you'll hear the sound of your level cracking. Pa, Wang Jie slapped Han Fei's head again. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Your spiritual energy is overflowing from your body. I'm drooling. Wang Jie snorted. All of you, go to the fishing trial class. You're not allowed to be absent. He Xiaoyu hurried to drag Han Fei away. She could tell that she would be beaten too if they stayed any longer. Didn't they see that Mr. Wang Jie's eyes were bloodshot? Soon after they left, He Xiaoyu asked secretly, Han Fei, are we going to fight today? Han Fei turned around and looked at her in surprise. That's not a good idea, is it? Will I be kicked out if I cause trouble the moment I come back? He Xiaoyu said, what's there to be scared of? Do you know? I'm only 1 step away from breaking through level 7. I think a dozen more bowls of swallowed spirit soup and a bottle of fish head body polishing fluid will be enough. I can lend you my bamboo rod. Seeing the passion in He Xiaoyu's eyes, Han Fei realized that the girl had benefited a lot from the soup, or she wouldn't be egging him on right now. However, Han Fei was quite tempted too. Although the swallowed spirit soup was useless to him, he could still drink dozens of bowls of it. That would all be spiritual energy. The 2 of them agreed to challenge each other right after class. It was Han Fei's first class. Nobody was willing to sit next to him except for his temporary ally, He Xiaoyu, who supported him. But Wang Jie said gloomily the moment he came in, sit away from each other. Don't think about puppy love at such a young age. Immediately, everybody in the class focused their eyes on Han Fei and He Xiaoyu. He Xiaoyu immediately blushed and said angrily, "I'm not in puppy love." Han Fei opened his hands helplessly. "Me neither. It's pure between us." Pure. As soon as this word came out, everyone's view of Han Fei became impure. Everyone seemed to be wondering when Han Fei started to be so shameless. The class began. Wang Jie said, "You're all familiar with the fishing trial. I won't emphasize the details to you. I only want to emphasize that you should act according to your capabilities and not be eager for quick success. Although the fishing trial is about the quality and quantity of fish, you should know how many students are eaten by the fish every time. The odds of death and the odds of injury are 10%. Wang Jie talked a lot. It was Han Fei's first time hearing that, and he listened with great interest. As it turned out, the fishing trial was just a way to select talents for fishing. Only those who passed the trial would be awakened, which would awaken their spiritual beasts. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.